Good morning. A bombshell budget as Britain faces 40 billion in tax hikes.
The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, signals the return of tax and spend Labour.
This budget raises taxes by £40 billion. Any Chancellor standing here today would have to face this reality.
So what does it mean for you? Injecting huge funds into the NHS and schools, but business bearing the brunt of the pain.
The largest real terms growth in day-to-day NHS spending outside of COVID since 2010.
But for drivers and drinkers, hopefully not at the same time, some good news as the Chancellor freezes the fuel duty and takes a penny off your pint.
So I have decided today to freeze fuel duty next year, and I will maintain the existing 5% cut for another year too. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol pumps next year.
We're going to be talking to the Shadow Chancellor Jeremy Hunt and Tory leadership contender Kemi Badenoch throughout the show to get their reaction.
In other news, a British man is among the 95 people who've been killed as flash floods cause horror and devastation in Spain. We'll be live in Valencia shortly.
And we're heading to Europe's biggest Halloween festival in Londonderry, where 100,000 visitors are set to take part in the fun.
Good morning. November the 10th is the date when Ruben Amorim reportedly takes over as the new Manchester United boss. He's due to speak to the media later today and ahead of a big week of rugby union internationals. England prop Joe Marler says the haka should be binned. Does he have a point? More later.
Are you heading out trick-or-treating this evening and wondering whether you need a coat or umbrella? Well, for most of us, the answer is no, but I'll have the details coming up.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Yes, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the budget...
The elephant in the room, yes.
Yes. Should we talk about Halloween?
Yes. Happy Halloween, by the way.
Yes. Oh, it's
to those who celebrate.
Yes.
Is it today?
It is today.
Yeah.
It is today. So trick-or-treating tonight. Are you all for a bit of that?
I will be avoiding the trick-or-treaters. Is that wrong?
Aidan?
Yeah, it's not a big thing for me. I mean, I do remember it happening from time to time when I was a kid, but it's very much an American advent in the last sort of 10, 15 years, isn't it?
I think it's very American.
Yeah.
Maybe if I had children, I'd feel differently, but I will have the lights off in my house. But I might buy an emergency pack of mini chocolates, just in case. I don't want to upset anybody. And then I can eat it if nobody turns up. That's my plan.
I do find it a bit irritating, but then we go to bed early.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't we? This is the trouble.
I don't have the time. But apparently the kids go out early. They go out about 4:30 when it gets dark.
Oh, do they?
It's earlier than you think.
Well, there was one year, a couple of years ago, I did wake up in the morning to find a load of eggs that had been thrown.
This is the thing, if you don't answer the door, you do run the risk.
So it's a bit of a pet. I do find it a little bit intrusive.
Do you?
Yeah, but am I being a bit of a Grinch? I don't know.
Did you ever usse to get a big white bedsheet and put it over you and pretend to be a ghost?
Yes,
No.
that's the classic one. Yeah, and you cut the eye holes out.
Yeah, see, there you go.
Yeah. What will you be doing tonight, then? Are you going to get some... I think you should get a stash, just in case.
No.
OK.
No.
They got one offer in the supermarkets, actually.
Oh, OK.
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Aidan. No, I'm not spending the money on it. I don't know.
So you'll just be barricading yourself in the house?
I will be barricading myself in, and I'm sorry if I sound miserable for doing that, but I just can't be bothered with it.
OK. So you won't be dressing up this year, no?
No.
OK, well, let us know if you have any Halloween plans. Will you be trick-and-treating with the children, the grandchildren? If so, what are they dressing up as?
Yeah, if you've got little kids, it's different, but as adults, I think really we should know slightly better.
gbnews.com/you'll say.
Now, 118 days into this Labour government, and we finally got to see what their manifesto slogan, change, really meant.
Well, despite a cautious election campaign, Labour has been bold in this budget. But was it the right recipe for long-term growth?
Well, our political correspondent Adam Cherry has the latest.
After months warning of black holes and tough choices, yesterday the Chancellor Rachel Reeves finally spelled out what it really means. A whopping £40 billion in tax rises.
The scale and seriousness of the situation that we have inherited cannot be underestimated. Together, the hole in our public finances this year, which recurs every year, the compensation schemes that they did not fund, and their failure to assess the scale of the challenges facing our public services means that this budget raises taxes by £40 billion.
In what amounts to the biggest budget tax raid in decades, the Chancellor targeted businesses, landlords and high earners with a swathe of hikes. National insurance, capital gains tax, inheritance tax, all in the firing line. With most of the headline measures already briefed to the media, this was a budget with relatively few surprises. Though that didn't stop Rachel Reeves from pulling one or two rabbits out of the hat.
So I have decided today to freeze fuel duty next year, and I will maintain the existing 5% cut for another year too. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol pumps next year.
Spending and borrowing will also shoot up, with new cash for the NHS, defence, education and infrastructure. In the Chancellor's own words, this government will invest, invest, invest.
First is to restore economic stability. Second, increasing investment and building new infrastructure. Third, to ensure that all parts of the UK can realise their potential. Fourth, to improve employment prospects and skills. Fifth, we are launching our long-term modern industrial strategy. Sixth, to drive innovation, we are protecting record funding for research and development. And finally, to maximise the growth benefits of our clean energy mission, we have confirmed key investments such as carbon capture and storage to create jobs in our industrial heartlands.
Rachel Reeves justified pulling the tax levers to restore economic stability and revive public services, all while protecting working people. She promised a laser-like focus on economic growth and an end to short-termism. But with the tax burden now soaring to a record high and anemic growth forecasted for the next 5 years, the question is, was yesterday's budget the right recipe for the long term?
Well, let's talk to Adam, who joins us now. I mean, there is a real problem here, Adam, isn't there, whether we like the budget or not? As the Chancellor said herself yesterday, any Chancellor stood at this dispatch box at this time would face the same issues.
Well, the problem is, it's only been 4 months since there was an election in which they held up a manifesto they claimed was fully costed, fully funded, and and had no plans for higher taxes beyond that. And that amounted to about £8 billion in higher tax in receipts. And now we come in with £40 billion, which is obviously way more than the £22 billion black hole which they promised to fill. So it's an enormous package here. Do the public buy it? Do the public feel they've been deceived in some way? That's the question she has to answer. She spoke to the Parliamentary Labour Party last night and warned them basically to get in line and support this thing, saying, we've made our choices, these are tough choices, but now take the fight to the Tories. As we said in that clip there, really, she's trying to aim for a long-term perspective on this and say that in 5 years' time, do working people, the phrase we've heard so often, do they feel that they have more money in their pocket? And does that justify this enormous tax and spend package? I'm not sure.
What do we make of what it will mean for businesses, especially small to medium-sized businesses?
Yeah, well, that national insurance rise on employers, according to the Office for Budget Responsibility, which is sort of the budget watchdog who marks the government's homework on their figures, they say that around 3/4 of the burden from this national insurance rise will fall on employees. So that will lead to lower wage growth and reduced job prospects. So even the OBR are saying this, and remember the OBR were venerated by Rachel Reeves in this budget, almost politicised as proving her point and justifying all these measures. If even they're saying this, then Labour have a lot of explaining to do if, in the long term, wage growth is stagnant and there aren't more jobs going around.
Reliant on growth, as that's been, I mean, that's going to be the saviour of the economy. But however, it boils down to the point that, as she kept making, there is a huge financial problem here. And the IFS, let's not forget, said before the election there was a conspiracy of silence between the two main parties as to the problems they would face in office.
Well, the national debt is something like over, I think, trillions at this point. So the likes of Nigel Farage say the £22 billion black hole is pennies on the real problem. Yeah, look, we have anemic growth for the next 5 years, according to the OBR, something like 1.5% in the long term. That's nowhere near what Rachel Reeves was promising in her manifesto. So you're right, there is a significant issue here. The question is, does whacking taxes up on working people via stealth with this national insurance rise, does that help or hinder long-term prospects?
And hearing from Rachel Reeves yesterday, I mean, she accepts off the back of the OBR, who didn't fully support this £22 billion black hole, it's worth noting, Adam. She said this isn't the summit of her ambitions. Of course, she wants the economy to grow faster than this. And she also went as far to say that she wouldn't rule out further tax rises in the future.
Well, that's the key point, isn't it? She can say it's not the summit of her ambition, but if on the other hand, she's not ruling out raising the tax burden higher than it already is. This is the highest tax burden in decades and decades. I'm not sure how you square those two. Again, to return to the manifesto, because I think it's important, they attacked the Conservatives for raising the tax burden to the point that it was until yesterday. And now they've taken it even further and admitted that they're doing so and admitted that it will impact not just businesses, but the workers for those businesses. So she has a really difficult challenge, to put it mildly, in selling this. Look, this won't be felt overnight because the way they've packaged this is that the pay slips don't change, right? So month to month, workers shouldn't see a difference. But again, the question is, over time, are workers not seeing those pay rises that they're expecting, and is growth slower than it should be?
Okay, Adam Cherry in Westminster, thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's talk to the former chair of the Federation of Small Businesses, Mike Cherry. Mike, it's good to see you. Let's put this into some sort of context then, because as Adam pointed out, for the vast majority of people, monthly pay packets, weekly pay packets aren't really going to change as a result of all of this. But what impact is it going to have on small business employers?
Well, I think the one positive out of this is that Rachel has recognised the need to re-establish the employer's allowance that is given to the smallest businesses to support any increases in the national insurance that she's announced. But those increases in national insurance are going to be a real barrier to employers looking to try and grow their businesses and to take on those hard to reach people, which are the ones they want to get off benefits and back into work at this point in time. Alongside the increases that were announced in the national living wage, and indeed, let's not forget those between 18 and 21 going up by quite a massive 16% to £10 an hour, that in some sectors is going to have a very, very significant downturn on employers looking to employ those younger people who don't have the experience of older ones. And of course, let's not forget that she has also, alongside the increase in the national insurance to 15% now for employers, she has also almost halved the allowance at which the threshold kicks in from £9,100 to £5,000. So that also means that for employers, those who are taking on part-timers, instead of being able to employ them for, let's say, 15, 16 hours a week, 8 or 9 hours a week, this will now mean that employers have to pay national insurance on those very, very low number of hours that the employees work. So all in all, it's a hammer blow for incentivizing employers to take on more people. And quite frankly, I cannot see how it's going to stimulate investment that she is demanding in what she says around long-term growth. I just cannot see how that's going to encourage smaller businesses to invest in people. And they're not going to have the money to invest in technology and other areas of their business that they might have been intending to look at.
Do you worry about wealthy people, wealthy businesses leaving this country as a result of this budget?
Well, that's a question you'll have to ask those wealthy people. I mean, most small businesses, quite frankly, struggle on a day-to-day basis. And I think the worrying thing is that when you look at what she has, if you like, pulled a rabbit out of the hat by announcing the continuation of the threshold on inheritance tax, staying as it is at the moment at 325,000 till 2030. But also, she's now brought pensions into that, which were excluded from inheritance tax. So any residual pensions that are left in an estate will now apparently be subject to inheritance tax at 40%. So that is a real worry for anybody hoping to use their business as their pension for their future retirement.
The key to a lot of this is about SMEs and growth. I mean, are we still right when we say SMEs, small and medium-sized companies, are the sort of backbone of our economy here in the UK? Because if you have the inability to grow, then that is a significant problem.
It is a significant problem, and let's not forget that for a very long time, businesses have been complaining, whether it be business rates, whether it be national insurance contributions, being an upfront cost that business has to face before they even either make a penny in turnover or indeed make a penny in profits. And I think this sets a very worrying trend. When you hear her say that taxes may have to increase further in the future, the trend is the wrong way at this point in time to stimulate investment and to stimulate growth, be that in businesses or in job creation.
To see you this morning, Mike Cherry, from formerly of the Federation of Small Businesses.
Now, how much are you in line to lose or gain from the Chancellor's budget?
Well, we've teamed up with tax and advisory firm Blick Rothenberg to provide a free online budget calculator. So you can either scan the QR code on your screen now or go to gbnews.com/budget2024. Put in all your details there and you can see if you're going to end up with any more or any less or no change at all at the end of the month.
Yeah, really handy tool, that one. Now, at GB News, we love to hear what you think. So every day we're going to be running our poll of the day. And today we're asking...
I don't know what our question is.
It's not...
Oh, are you a winner or loser from the budget? We will bring you the result throughout the course of the day. And the final result will be in Martin Daubney's show later on.
Yes, and for all the latest polls, news and how to vote, just go to gbnews.com/poll.
Right, 17 minutes past 6. Let's have a look at some of the other stories heading into the newsroom this morning.
And Taiwan has shut down schools and offices as a powerful typhoon Kongray approaches. The typhoon is expected to make landfall on Thursday evening, bringing with it high winds and flooding to much of the island's east coast and northern areas.
The first UK case of a potentially deadly strain of the Mpox virus has been found in London. The UK Health Security Agency says the risk to the population is low. The person involved had been on holiday in Africa and travelled back to London on an overnight flight on October the 21st.
Donald Trump has hit back at President Biden after he called Trump supporters garbage. The former president has told Wisconsin supporters that they are the heart and soul of America as he praised sanitation workers and got behind the wheel of a garbage truck.
Kamala and Joe call all of us, and them, even them, garbage. I call you the heart and soul of America. You are the heart and soul.
I can't believe that. Talk about an open goal.
Yeah.
I mean, why would you... Apart from the fact of you don't go insulting the voters, do you? I mean, it's a ridiculous thing to do. But then it's an open goal for Donald Trump. Of course it is.
And he's managed to insult half of America with just 5 days to go.
I mean, why would you... It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah,
What a ridiculous thing to say. The whole point of all of this is, like in any election, is, the people living next door, you might disagree with them politically. Doesn't mean everyone who doesn't agree with you is garbage. I mean, what nonsense is that? So I'm surprised at that.
It just adds to the performance of it all as well, doesn't it? I mean, Donald Trump then in his high-vis jacket, as we just saw him at the rally, getting into a garbage truck. I mean, yeah.
I wonder if that's going to be the saviour for him.
I'd say.
But things like that, with a high-vis on, working in McDonald's, giving away loads of free food, as he did, serving the chips, French fries, All that sort of stuff actually works.
Yeah.
That's quite a good PR stunt, isn't it?
Voters like to see that sort of thing, don't they?
It's going to be interesting to see. We'll have full coverage, of course, on Tuesday night from 11 p.m. right through till 6 in the morning. Won't we, Miss Costello?
Yes, you won't miss a trick. Yes, we're going to be here throughout the night, so stay up with us for all of the drama as America decides their next president.
Now, let's get a check on the weather for you with Alex Burkill.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Happy Halloween. Here's your GB News breakfast weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. For some, there is some eerie fog around first thing this morning, but much of this will clear away, and then it is generally going to be a dry but rather cloudy day for most of us. The exception being across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the north-northwest. Here it is going to be a little bit wet, some rain pushing through, the most persistent rain for the Northern Isles. There will also be some strong gusty winds here, could be some gales in exposed spots, but elsewhere across much of the UK, like I said, staying largely dry, not a great amount of sunshine to be had, pretty cloudy but pretty mild as well, with temperatures peaking around 15 or 16 Celsius. Now, if you are heading out trick-or-treating this evening, for many it is going to stay largely dry, but still the wet weather continuing across particularly northern and western parts of Scotland. The rain not especially heavy, but it could be quite persistent at times. A drier story further east and south across Scotland and across Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales. Apart from the odd spot of drizzle, it is going to be mostly fine this evening. Some breaks in the cloud, but generally a pretty cloudy night, and so that does mean temperatures not dropping a huge amount, and so it should be pretty mild, good for not needing a coat over the top of your costume. Overnight we are going to see rain in the north, edging a little bit further southwards across the northern half of Scotland, staying drier elsewhere and sticking with those largely cloudy skies, so that's why it's going to be a fairly mild night for many of us, although there again could be some mist and fog patches developing, particularly in the south. Any mist and fog will clear as we go through the morning, and then otherwise through tomorrow, a similar day to today for many of us, albeit a wetter story across much of Scotland as a front edges its way further southwards, breaking up as it goes though, with some colder air piling into the far north, so a chilly story in the far north of Scotland, again pretty mild elsewhere, albeit not as mild as today. Have a great Halloween. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Right, still to come, we're heading to Spain, where torrential rain has led to devastating flash flooding. We'll bring you all the details in just a moment.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recruiters are warning that if you're not tech savvy, you could be missing out with your CV failing to make it through an AI-powered sifting process. So we've gone from sort of computer says no HR people ticking boxes to AI, right? Is that right?
Yes, well, this applies once you're in the job as well, as a recent report revealed that employees expect AI will manage an average of a third of their tasks within the next 12 months. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Cosmo Curry, founder of Van Kuysen, a leading company in technology recruitment.
Morning, Cosmo.
Morning.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Ben.
Well,
Hi.
yeah, thank you for joining us. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because AI is, of course, on the rise, and now in the workplace and in universities and things. Another article came to mind. There was a student recently, I think it was in the news just the other day, that got in trouble for using AI. So there's, you know, for exam purposes and essays. So there's lots of different ways that it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But you're, of course, here to talk about the ways in which AI is a good thing within the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, AI is here to stay, for sure. And we're seeing this rise of people using it in such a clever format. And the other side of it is also we're seeing people who are using it and during the process of that, they are losing their character. We're losing the actual insight into the individual behind that. And so we've kind of got this kind of mix. And I think AI is phenomenal when you're looking at it from a point of view of optimization, point of view of speed, getting results. But I think we have to remember that, you know, the fundamental of recruitment is people. And we cannot substitute the people, the personal aspect, by replacing that with AI.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
.26. Now, the death toll in Spain continues to climb, with a 71-year-old British man amongst nearly 100 fatalities after devastating flash floods.
Well, rescuers continue to search for those still missing following what is considered the worst natural disaster to strike Spain in half a century.
Well, let's talk to Spanish weather journalist Martin Barreiro, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning, Martin. What can you tell us about what is happening at the moment?
Well, we have this kind of events. This is a DANA, it's a isolated depression at high levels. It's a recurring weather event here in Spain, but these phenomena are becoming more frequent and more intense. This DANA has been, as you say, the deadliest adverse weather event in our history. Previously, we have these kind of events roughly every 20 years, but now they occur more often and with greater intensity. The Mediterranean, you have to remind that this is one of the most climate vulnerable regions. We have this DANA, we have cold air at high altitudes and easterly winds that bring moisture to the Mediterranean coast. With the elevated topography in those areas, we have the deadliest combination. The Mediterranean Sea is usually warm. Now we have the warmest in history, which fuels these massive storms. Unfortunately, some of these storms remain stationary in those areas, and we have under 8 hours around nearly or more than 500 millimeters of rain, more than what typically falls in a whole year in this place, making this a catastrophic event. I think this is really, really devastating.
We know that more than 90 people have reportedly died so far, but we also know that hundreds could be trapped under this very high level of water.
Yes, the situation is catastrophic as we speak, because they don't have to find all the people. There are a lot of people missing. As you possibly know, the forecast indicate a high-risk event, but it's probably that the warning protocols were not as effective as they need to be. We also need to address the risk posed by the urban development in these areas. You have to know that there are homes built in dry ripe beds and ravines and other flood-prone areas. The climate change is intensifying these situations. The global warming means that both the atmosphere and the ocean are warming, providing more energy from storms to be more severe. It's crucial to reduce emissions and adapt to these adverse conditions.
Just very briefly, Martin, are you expecting more rain on this level over the coming days?
We are expecting in areas more of north of the Comunidad Valenciana, but we can't discard now. We can't say that it's not going to rain anymore. We expect not that amount of precipitation, but it could be a little risk in Catalonia, in the south, in Andalusia, in the next hours.
OK. Martin Barreiro, good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
Absolutely terrible.
Horrific. And the pictures coming out of Spain and Valencia are just truly shocking. I mean, you wouldn't think Spain, would you? I mean, I know Martin was saying that this does happen throughout the year. It's becoming more and more frequent. But the level of rainfall and seeing cars being swept away, people having to be evacuated by helicopter, holding their dogs in their arms. I mean, you just can't imagine, can you?
So absolutely horrific.
Water up to your waist.
But we shall keep you up to date with all of that, of course. In the meantime, on a lighter note, how would you like to win your entire Christmas this year? Well, you could do with the very latest Great British Giveaway.
Yes, here are all the details that you need.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. First, we'll give you £20,025 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you £5,000 to spend on all of your Christmas presents. Christmas lunch, that's on us too. With a further £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. And the best news, you'll get it all in time for the big day. For your chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2 or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Now, do stay with us still to come as Ruben Amorim is appointed Manchester United's new manager. Why isn't he starting right away? It's a big question. We'll be answering that next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in Dundee on the A92. There's a lane closed southbound heading out of Dundee over the Tay Road Bridge for emergency repairs. In Greater Manchester, the A58 is closed eastbound along Bolton Road in Ashton in Makerfield after an accident between Bryn Road South and Bryn Road. On the M4 in Berkshire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 13 and 14. The A34 Newbury turn to the A338 at Hungerford. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking around 10 minutes in delays approaching the M25 because of lane closures for roadworks, and there are delays of up to 10 minutes with some cancelled trains at Portsmouth Harbour, and that's because of a points failure. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Oedipus is back in the theatre, as Stefan Kyriazis can tell me. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A good Oedipus or a bad one?
It's a great one. It's divided the critics a little bit. So some would prefer more kind of truth to the original text, perhaps a little bit more sense of the kind of epic Greek tragedy. I mean, this is Sophocles. It's 2,500 years old, and it's still one of the best, literally, no pun, the mother of all tragedies. It's just absolutely staggering. You like that?
I did. Where and with whom?
So this one is on at the Wyndham Theatre until January the 4th. The exciting thing is Mark Strong as Oedipus, Leslie Manville as his wife, Jocasta, and it's been reframed, you'll see from the pictures, as a modern political thriller. So he is waiting for election results, general election results, you will remember. There's a clock ticking down in the background. They're at Campaign HQ. They're waiting for it to click down to zero. We increasingly know that when it hits zero, terrible truths are coming. So it's operating on two levels. He's obsessed with the truth. He says very famously, I am me. He's so proud of his sense of who he is. And of course, that's all going to be horrendously ripped away. Mark Strong is wonderful. And then when we get to the very end and the horrific final reveal, I forgot. I was so gripped in the political thriller and everything else, I actually swore under my breath in the theatre, Michael, because I just had been so engrossed, and they play very well at other mysteries going on and a family drama, that when my penny dropped, I literally was devastated, and they do it. Even the critics that haven't loved this reframing admit, the two of them, and especially at the end, it's searingly agonising. It's glorious.
2,500 years later,
yeah,
it's still absolutely visceral.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Time to go through all the latest sports news now. Aidan McGee is here with us. Morning.
Good morning to you both. How are you getting on?
Yeah, all right. Should we talk about Man United? They have now got a new manager.
Well, it looks like it's not been confirmed as yet, but all the moves are heading towards Ruben Amorim, who is the manager of Sporting Lisbon. He won 2 league titles over there. He was linked strongly with Liverpool in the summer. There are rumours that he turned up for an interview with West Ham just a few months ago, but they'd already given the job to Julen Lopetegui, so it was a little bit embarrassing for him. But that's not to say he won't excel at Manchester United. Now, the issue here, though, is that he's not going to take charge until November the 10th, which is a little bit disappointing if you're Man United, because, you know, if you decide to sack somebody, you want to get them in and get their feet under the table as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but they've got Nistelrooy, haven't they? For now.
They have, but I don't think he's going to be part of the new regime. He's going to be going. So what's the point in having your next 3 games overseen by somebody who we know is not going to be at the club after that? Now, listen, he'll do a good job. He did a good job last night. This is an interesting stat. 5 goals Man United scored last night. They didn't do that once in the 2.5 years that Erik ten Hag was in charge at Manchester United. I mean, you know, and the numbers here are eye-watering as well, Stephen and Ellie. If they'd sacked him in the summer, which I think you advised them to do, Stephen.
I did, actually, yeah.
You did, yeah. They would have saved £7.5 million. So the compensation package to Ten Hag is £17.5 million. Over the duration of his contract. They're going to have to pay £8.4 million to get Amorim out of his contract at Sporting Lisbon because he's under contract there. They're going to have to pay £4.1 million to take his staff with him. And then the unknown is that how much they're going to pay the current Man United staff to leave the club. I mean, you're looking at a bill here of well in excess of £30 million, and that's before you consider the fact that Amorim's going to be earning £6.5 million a year, plus, well, you'd think he'll be incentivised, he'll be on bonuses. And so, look, anyone who doubts the numbers in football, here's a start reminder. It's a good job Man United are rich, that's for sure. But in terms of what he'll bring, I always just felt that, see, when I was working up there, coming Man United, they always said the problem, Ellie, will be when Sir Alex Ferguson goes. The club always denied that. He's just part of a cog in a wheel, but the club's fallen apart since then, certainly on the pitch compared to what they were achieving. I always felt that the Man United managers since have just lacked a little bit of dynamism. Alex Ferguson always used to say in his books, I managed when I was quite young to make millionaires sweat. And it was a key conundrum and it was key to his success. I just don't think the managers they've had since David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Jose Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ten Hag have had that dynamism in the dressing room to make players really.
Do you like this choice then? Does Ruben Amorim have the spark?
I think he does. I mean, look, Man United is a different kettle of fish altogether. It's up there with England in terms of the pressure. In fact, you'd argue that, given that it's every single week, in fact, it's every single day of the year, you'd argue that it's even more. But I think you need someone to go in there and shake the foundations of that club. There are going to be casualties as well in terms of departures. Erik ten Hag came out yesterday, or the day before I think it was, and blamed 3 players for his downfall. Well, 2 of them he signed, Anthony and Casemiro. He turned the gun on Marcus Rashford as well, which I don't think is a very good look when you're leaving and you're looking for another job, because it just means that you're blaming everybody else when you're the person in charge. He was given 2.5 years as well, Stephen. That's a lot of time in Premier League terms.
Right, you mentioned 5-2 yesterday against Leicester City. What other results did we see?
Well, we saw Crystal Palace. They had a bit of a blow, actually, because they won at Aston Villa, but they lost Bereza and Adam Wharton, 2 England players from the summer, to injury. Newcastle, good win for them over Chelsea in the Carabao Cup as well. Arsenal winning at Preston North End, and a really good win for Tottenham Hotspur over Manchester City. It means that Manchester City have departed a competition early, which doesn't normally happen for them, and it underlines the problems they've had winning at that stadium ever since it opened in 2019.
What's going on with the haka?
So the England prop Joe Marler put out a tweet yesterday morning saying that the haka, which is the cultural dance, the tribal dance that goes on before, it lays down a challenge, doesn't it, from the New Zealand players to the England players. Well, I think so, yeah. It's actually part of the rules as well. You have to respect that sort of cultural tradition, if you like. But he said it's ridiculous and it should be binned, and he believes it gives the New Zealand players an advantage over their opponents.
Really? What? Because they're all scared of it?
Well, a little bit. I mean,
which is what you meant. I mean, that's the point of it. But surely no one is. Just
well,
a
I mean, look,
spectacle,
you're lacking a little bit of mental fortitude, aren't you? Don't you think if in a sporting contest like that, you can't withstand a minute or so of
someone sticking their tongue out at you.
Exactly. I mean, you don't have to face it either. You can turn the other way if you like.
Yeah.
But I mean, some people do say it's an advantage. Why do New Zealand get that privilege, but no other country appears to? Samoa do it as well, I think. But I'm talking about major nations. And all right, listen. New Zealand All Blacks are extremely successable, but it's not like they win every match. I mean, they haven't won the last 2 World Cups.
Oh.
But he deleted his tweet anyway.
Well, what cultural thing could we have?
I don't know. It's one for our viewers, I think, isn't it?
Around the maypole.
Yeah, they could do a maypole. They could sit down and have a cup of tea and a sandwich.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be a picnic.
Or they could be...
It's a very English thingy.
They could do Morris dancing. That'd scare them.
I thought well, Morris dancing was mentioned actually on the radio yesterday. The maypole thing. I thought it was more of a Scandinavian thing. I thought it was more of a midsummer thing in Sweden.
Well, we do it over here.
Do we?
Over here as well.
Well, it has to involve tea, doesn't it?
I think tea.
Yeah, teapot.
I think tea and Morris dancing. Would be. I mean, if that doesn't scare the pants off opponents, nothing will.
I think it's a good idea.
Anyway, he's deleted his tweet. He said his context is everything, but he's also due to the 2 countries, England and New Zealand, are playing on Saturday in the autumn internationals. He has actually left the squad, but not because of that. There's a personal reason as well. But it just stokes things up a little bit just ahead of the weekend.
Yeah, doesn't it just? All right, Aidan, thank you. We'll see you a little bit later on.
Do stay with us. We'll be going through the papers next.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with 2 main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet, and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good
morning,
to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean, and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with 3 goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programmes. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
6:44, let's have a look at some of the front pages, and guess what? There's pretty much only one story today, and that's the budget.
Yes, and the headlines write themselves, really, don't they? The day before Halloween is when the budget was delivered. So the nightmare on Downing Street, says the Telegraph.
Return of tax and spend, says the Guardian.
The Express goes with Halloween horror show.
A record tax burden, according to the Times.
Rachel Reeves's 40 billion tax bombshell, says the Daily Mail.
All right, so let's go through all of that with GP, Dr. Rennie Hunterkamp, and the author and commentator Nikki Hodgson. Good to see you both this morning. Let's start with the budget, should we? I have to say, mind you, this is the strategy. I thought it could have been worse.
I think that was the strategy, don't you? I think it'd been leaked for so long with such horrific things that everybody sort of sat back and went, oh, that wasn't so bad. But it is bad. It's really bad. It's a complete socialist, you know, spend other people's money. I mean, we're looking at a debt in 5 years' time of £3 trillion. You know, we only bring in £1 trillion at the moment of tax revenue a year.
Nikki, what did you make of it today?
I thought there were some individual policies that actually were really positive for vulnerable people. So, for example, carers allowance going up for the first time since it was introduced in 1976. We know what an incredible job carers do and how vital they are to the economy and the NHS and everything else. And things like, you know, the 18 to 20-year-olds having the wage range to £10 an hour, which is still nothing, really. But, I mean, and I liked that and I thought that was good. And but I am very nervous about it because I don't know how on earth she's going to pull off this gamble.
And it is a gamble.
Growth.
I just don't understand how
it's a gamble.
Growth is the issue.
Growth is the issue, and let's not forget, and that's the point, Stephen, that carers allowance, which I agree with, because I campaigned tirelessly for the care industry, but if those companies suddenly decide that because of their national insurance contributions now, with no business rate help or anything else, they'll get rid of 1 carer in 10, so that these people have to do more work quicker, it decimates the care industry, because the businesses are now looking at their bottom line, as they will, because they're businesses, why wouldn't they? And thinking, well, hang on a minute, there's nothing in this for me.
I'll tell you what struck me about all of this, because it's all about, you know, not taxing working people and all the rest of it, which I think to a large degree they've actually done. They've stuck to their word on that, but it's all these other implications, isn't it? But it's the bus fare cap. Which, I mean, so many people last night were getting in touch saying, well, we can't afford to use the bus anymore.
And who uses the bus?
Poorer people.
Poorer people, lower paid workers, people who need the night bus, mums with babies. Exactly.
People in rural communities,
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a shocker.
The other thing that I don't understand is why they are not going after, you know, these ridiculous multinational companies like Amazon, like your tech giants that are paying, that actually for the past 2 years were exempt from paying any corporation tax whatsoever and received money. They're still paying 2%, 3%, 4%. Isn't that such an easy... I mean, I can't imagine anyone disagreeing with that.
And that is what the small independent shops on your high street are saying, that you need to be going after the likes of Amazon, after your Starbucks, after these
but
huge
it's
corporations.
so much easier
and
for
not
them.
us.
So much easier for them to go after the small high street shops than it is to go after Jeff Bezos and his pals, because they have so much power now, because they are so huge. But we've allowed them to be that powerful.
But the problem is with that is, I mean, that you wouldn't want... I mean, if big companies like that say, well, we're going to leave the UK, then you have got a problem. You've got a problem with the amount of people they employ. But what they're not... If they're not putting money back in via a decent tax system, then it makes it less of an issue.
But they just become unaccountable. I mean, they're basically, you know, unelected demigods. They have so much influence over our society, and we've been so afraid to push them away because we need their money that we're letting them do terrible things to our children's social media use. And, you know, I mean, I could go on about that forever. I know that's not really the focus of the budget, but what I'm saying is I just still feel that entirely. My husband is a small business owner, you know, he's worked so hard his whole life, and then this makes this so much more difficult. And it's just one example.
I do think there's going to be a big issue with these SMEs saying, well, we were going to hire 2 people this year, whatever, we're just not going to bother now.
And these working people that Labour have promised to protect are going to feel the impacts. It will just be further down the line when they go for a salary increase or when they're looking for more people to join the company.
And when they're buying goods, that the prices go up slightly
up
to
the
cover
shops,
those costs. And the other people that are really going to suffer and who are already suffering, actually, whether you love them or hate them, are landlords, small landlords. Because if you look at the stamp duty on second homes, you know, a £300,000 flat, which is probably what landlords are buying to rent on, you'd pay £2,500 stamp duty. A landlord was paying £11,500, so they were already paying way over the odds. Now they're going to pay £17,500. We're going to have no rental properties left. What will happen? Rents will go up. The working person will suffer.
Good point. Mind you, can we have a look at the OBR tied in with all this? Is in the Mail, page 8, Renee. The £22 billion black hole doesn't exist, says the Office for Budget Responsibility.
Elsa, please. I mean,
there is one, but it's half.
It's half. And even then, he said, actually, it was spending net pressures. It wasn't actually a hole, it was spending net pressures. And it was very interesting. Jeremy Hunt, who I think you might be talking to later, was outraged that they were releasing this report on the day of the budget because he knew, and he said that they wanted it to be buried. Well, it has been buried. It's a tiny little story in the Mail. And basically, the Office for Budget Responsibility that Labour have put so much credence by, the reason that Liz Truss failed was that she didn't get them on side. They've got them on side. But they're not supporting this whole thing that Rachel Reeves whittled on about in the House yesterday, this £22 million black hole. It doesn't exist.
And Labour haven't attempted to come up with a reason for what... I mean, they haven't tried at all. They just keep ignoring the question, what is that? Where is it?
And tried to bury the report.
Yeah. And half of that £22 billion black hole is the choice to settle those public sector pay disputes. I mean, that was a political choice. And Rachel Reeves would have surely known that in the run-up to the general election, that that's what they wanted to do. So you would know, surely, that you would need to find billions that would be in this black hole.
Well, you'd think so, especially if you
but there was no honesty. There was no honesty there.
But there's no honesty in any of this. Everything's hidden. Everything's, you know, sleight of hand in all of these moves. If you actually look into the detail, what we've got here is we've got lies that they tried to cover up with. And now the Office of Budget Responsibility is showing them for the lie. There is no £22 billion hole. And they've delivered a budget which is going to destroy expansion, it's going to increase inflation, and it will stop job creation. The working person is going to suffer.
All right, amidst all of this, what about the... As you say, we're talking to the Chancellor later, but we are talking to the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, as well, in the next hour, because the IFS said both main parties had a conspiracy of silence over taxes and things. So it's going to be interesting to know what he would have done. I mean, he's not going to be necessarily absolutely straight down the line with his answer on that one, is he? But I mean,
no, but it was interesting.
As grim as it is, it would have been grim come what may.
It would have been, but it was interesting that, you know, a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the tax brackets and what people could earn and whether they were going to be, whether that was going to be stretched out for a longer period of time. And there was a lot of discussion about Labour are going to prolong that period. And he was, he quite oddly sort of went on TV and said something like, oh, well, that's really irresponsible, even though the Tories brought it in. So I thought that was quite funny. But so it'd be quite interesting to see what he thinks about that now. I don't know whether he's changed his mind.
No, well, you know, you can do kind of these things. Can we have a quick look at Ben Stokes, Nikki? This is in the Telegraph, because he's had his home broken into. Well, I mean, I don't think he was there, but his wife and kids had sort of popped out and...
Yeah, so he was on tour in Pakistan, and this is kind of one of those problems with social media and just the news in general, isn't it, when you're a famous person? That if people know you're not going to be at home at a certain time, your home is, you know, at risk of being burgled. And it's the fact that these people did it while his family were inside, you know, which I just find really shocking. I feel like these kinds of crimes are increasing as well.
It is. You hear of it more regularly now, don't you, with footballers?
Yes,
again, when they're away.
Again, exactly, with sports people. But the kind of bizarre things about it is that they took a lot of personal items rather than expensive items, including his OBE. And you sort of think, How are you going to sell that on the black market? Because everybody knows what it is. It's really odd.
That feels malicious, doesn't it? It's like, we'll take it because we know that matters
It feels
to you.
really weird.
Sadly, that's what the old dark web's for, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
people can buy it confidentially.
people buy pieces of art that they couldn't possibly, brag about because they're clearly stolen, but people will. There is a market for these things.
It's just such an odd...
It's
I can't get my head around it, but yeah. But he's safe and his family are safe, which is...
It's such an invasion of privacy.
Oh, it is.
Well, we've got to be very careful, haven't we, in terms of what we put out there. I mean, it's different if you're on a publicised tour, but still...
But we're all at risk of it. I mean, we give out so much personal information all the time without even thinking about it. Location sharing, I'm at this restaurant, I'm here, I'm on holiday, all that kind of thing. So we all kind of need to think a bit more carefully about it, really.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. Right, you two, we're out of time, but we'll see you a little bit later on. Thank you very much indeed.
Let's have a look at the weather with Alex Burkle.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Happy Halloween. Here's your GB News breakfast weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. For some, there is some eerie fog around first thing this morning, but much of this will clear away, and then it is generally going to be a dry but rather cloudy day for most of us. The exception being across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the north-northwest. Here it is going to be a little bit wet, some rain pushing through, the most persistent rain for the Northern Isles. There will also be some strong gusty winds here, could be some gales in exposed spots, but elsewhere across much of the UK, like I said, staying largely dry, not a great amount of sunshine to be had, pretty cloudy but pretty mild as well, with temperatures peaking around 15 or 16 Celsius. Now, if you are heading out trick-or-treating this evening, for many it is going to stay largely dry, but still the wet weather continuing across particularly northern and western parts of Scotland. The rain not especially heavy, but it could be quite persistent at times. A drier story further east and south across Scotland and across Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales. Apart from the odd spot of drizzle, it is going to be mostly fine this evening. Some breaks in the cloud, but generally a pretty cloudy night, and so that does mean temperatures not dropping a huge amount, and so it should be pretty mild, good for not needing a coat over the top of your costume. Overnight we are going to see rain in the north, edging a little bit further southwards across the northern half of Scotland, staying drier elsewhere and sticking with those largely cloudy skies, so that's why it's going to be a fairly mild night for many of us, although there again could be some mist and fog patches developing, particularly in the south. Any mist and fog will clear as we go through the morning, and then otherwise through tomorrow, a similar day to today for many of us, albeit a wetter story across much of Scotland as a front edges its way further southwards, breaking up as it goes though, with some colder air piling into the far north, so a chilly story in the far north of Scotland, again pretty mild elsewhere, albeit not as mild as today. Have a great Halloween. Bye-bye.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in Dundee on the A92. There's a lane closed southbound out of Dundee on the Tay Road Bridge for emergency repairs. In Lincolnshire, the A631 is blocked each way for an investigation between Gainsborough and Beckingham. In Worcestershire, the A38 is partly blocked by a problem on Droitwich Road at Fernhill Heath. On the M4 in Berkshire, there's a lane closed westbound after an accident between junctions 13 and 14 from Newbury to Hungerford. On the M26 in Kent, it's taking around 20 minutes in westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. The A3M in Hampshire is closed southbound from Steep to the Horndean and Cowplain turn, where overnight roadworks have overrun, and there are delays of up to 10 minutes with some cancelled trains at Portsmouth Harbour because of a points failure. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,000 and £25 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For your chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A bombshell budget as Britain faces 40 billion in tax hikes.
The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, signals the return of tax and spend Labour.
This budget raises taxes by £40 billion. Any Chancellor standing here today would have to face this reality.
So what does it mean for you? Injecting huge funds into the NHS and schools, but businesses bearing the brunt of that pain.
The largest real terms growth in day-to-day NHS spending outside of COVID since 2010.
But for drivers and drinkers, hopefully not at the same time, some good news as the Chancellor freezes the fuel duty and takes a penny off your pint.
So I have decided today to freeze fuel duty next year, and I will maintain the existing 5% cut for another year too. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol pumps next year.
Well, in exactly an hour, we'll be joined by the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, to answer your budget-related questions.
Plus, we'll be speaking to Shadow Chancellor Jeremy Hunt and Tory leadership contender Kemi Badenoch throughout the show to get their reaction.
Also this morning, a British man is amongst the 95 killed as flash floods cause horror and devastation in Spain. We'll be live in Valencia shortly.
And we're heading to Europe's biggest Halloween festival in Londonderry, where 100,000 visitors are set to take part in the festive fun.
Good morning. Ben Stokes has revealed that his family home was raided by masked burglars earlier this month, with thieves stealing the England cricket captain's OBE medal. In tennis, there was more progress for Jack Draper in Paris, and we'll find out why F1 champ Max Verstappen's driving has been compared to Dick Dastardly.
Are you heading out trick-or-treating this evening and wondering whether you need a coat or umbrella? Well, for most of us, the answer is no, but I'll have the details coming up.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Right, we're going to crack straight on with the budget, actually. Just a quick one from Philip, who says, I'm a 76-year-old pensioner living alone, and according to the budget calculator, I'll be £7.63 a week worse off. Which actually makes a difference, doesn't it? I mean, that adds up to a fair chunk of money over 12 months. It is just being squeezed in that way, isn't it? That's the issue.
So true. So many people get in touch on the bus fares, which have gone up from £2 to £3. John says, once again, London only pays £1.75 maximum for a bus journey, while here in Leicester, a 2-mile round trip will now cost over £5.
I mean, this is where it bites. It's these little bits which are the problem. Anyway, let's talk to the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, who joins us now. Very good morning. Very good to see you today. I was quite struck by what Rachel Reeves said when she was at the dispatch box, when she said any chancellor stood here would face the same choices that she's making, which begs the question, would your budget, if you'd still been there, been any different?
Morning, Stephen. Morning, Ellie. Yes, it would have been very different. You're right. We all face pressures in public finances. We all face an economy recovering from the pandemic. But the big question is, how do we get more money into our public services like the NHS without raising taxes in a way that damage economic growth, which in the end is the thing that matters most of all? And Rachel Reeves promised us 30 times this year before the election that she wouldn't increase taxes outside what was in the Labour manifesto. She even said she wanted to bring down taxes, and I think many people this morning are waking up feeling utterly betrayed that we've had the biggest tax-raising budget in history. And, you know, what is so interesting, Labour always says, well, we're going to protect working people, it won't harm ordinary families. But actually what their independent watchdog says is that living standards will go down, wages will go down, inflation will go up, mortgages will go up. This is a very, very tough budget for ordinary families.
But wasn't it always going to be a tough budget, even if it was you delivering it? Because the IFS, the Institute for Fiscal Studies, said this back in the summer, didn't they? They accused your party, the Tories, and the Labour Party of a conspiracy of silence over tax rises. They said they would be likely in the next 5 years from whatever government came in. They said they faced a stark choice between making tax rises beyond what it's promising in its manifesto, cutting spending and increasing borrowing. They warned that back in the summer. This would have been exactly the same budget from you, perhaps delivered differently.
It would have been very different. And I think I addressed those concerns in the budget I gave in the spring, because I said the choice I would make, the way I think we get more money into the NHS and our public services, is by taking difficult decisions on our welfare bill. At the moment, we are signing off nearly 100,000 people every year as not having to look for work. If we got the number of adults claiming out-of-work disability benefit down to 2019 levels, in other words, just before the pandemic, that would save £34 billion a year. And Mel Stride, the former Work and Pension Secretary, and I set out big plans to bring that welfare bill down. Now, Labour abandoned welfare reform in the King's speech. They've said they don't agree with what we were planning to do. And I think that's a very big mistake, because that is actually good for the economy. It gets more people into work. It's good for individuals, because we know that in terms of your mental health, you're much better off in work than out of work. But it's a difficult choice, no question about it. It's very, very difficult reform. And the government have chosen not to do that. They've gone the easier route, which is to pick the pockets of businesses. But of course, if you do that, in the end, as the OBR themselves said, that's going to mean fewer jobs, fewer opportunities and lower wages. And that's why this is going to be a very, very bitter medicine to swallow for many people.
But that would, I mean, but you perfectly highlight the problem here, because it is Hobson's choice, isn't it? I mean, if a Labour government, which has already faced so much criticism for taking winter fuel allowance off pensioners, had then gone in and started removing disability living allowance from, 100,000 people or whatever you say the figure is. I mean, that... Can you imagine the backlash that would be? I mean, it may be something which would be easier for a Tory government to do than a Labour government.
Well, politics, government is not easy, Stephen. That is the reality. These are difficult choices. But, what we should be saying is, if you've got mental health issues, we're going to treat your mental health issue and get you back into work. Not, you don't ever have to look for work again. And that is a real problem in the system that we've got at the moment. And it's a difficult choice, but it's one that we would have taken. By the way, something else we wouldn't have done is given train drivers a £10,000 pay rise and not asked for any productivity improvements in return. I mean, of course, it's very easy to give the unions exactly what they asked for, but is it the right thing for taxpayers? Is it the right thing if we want to modernise our railways and make them more efficient? Absolutely not. So government is about making difficult choices. Rachel Reeves, I'm afraid, took the easy choice today, which is to raise taxes. That's her right. All I'd say is it's totally legitimate. I may disagree with it, but it's a totally legitimate choice to make. But she should have told us before the election, instead of saying, as she said, she didn't just say that she wouldn't increase tax, she actually said she wanted to bring down tax. Let me just give you one example. We said that taxes would go up by £2,000 over the next 4 years under Labour. They're actually going to go up by nearly £8,000. Now, when we said that in the election campaign, Keir Starmer said Rishi Sunak was lying. He actually said he was deliberately lying. Now we have a tax rise 4 times higher than what we thought was coming down the tracks. That is something that I think is going to upset a lot of people.
Mr. Hunt, how was the experience yesterday for you sat in the House? Because that could have been you delivering that budget. That could have been your final statement before you went to the polls. You had until January 2025 in order to take the vote to the country. In hindsight now, did you make a mistake going to the polls early in the summer? Was that defeatist of you, of the Tory party? Could you have delivered a better budget for the British people?
I certainly think we could have delivered a better budget for the British people, but I think it's impossible to really know the answer to that question on the timing of the election. My instinct is it wouldn't have made a great deal of difference if we'd waited, because we've been in power a long time. You know, people were feeling very battered and bruised after the pandemic and the energy crisis. And I think they kind of made their mind up. All I wish now in hindsight is that we'd had a more honest debate in the election, because, you know, this is the budget that Rachel Reeves wanted to deliver all along. It's the biggest tax-raising budget in British history. It's going to have a devastating impact on ordinary families. And if she'd wanted to do that, I just wish she'd told us, and we could have had a proper grown-up debate about whether returning to traditional Labour tax and spend is the right thing for the British economy right now.
You're going to have a new leader very shortly. A lot of people say you should have had one in time for the budget, really, to respond to that. I know you can't say what will happen, but do you hope to still be Shadow Chancellor next week?
I won't be, and I'm sorry to really disappoint you, Stephen and Ellie, but this is actually the last interview I'll be giving you as either Chancellor or Shadow Chancellor, because I'll be stepping back from the Shadow Cabinet for the next few years at least. I think, you know, when you've had the drubbing that we had at the election, the Conservative Party needs to show new faces to the British people. So I recognise that. And politics is a tough old game, but I think it's the right thing. But it's always been a pleasure.
Well, I don't know about that. You can say that now, but I think maybe you've just had enough.
He says through his teeth. He says through his teeth.
Yeah. I don't think anyone would blame you for that. Really good to see you this morning. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you. Well, our political correspondent Adam Cherry joins us now, who's listening across to that interview with Jeremy Hunt. What did you make of it?
I think it focuses on the central question here, which is the issue of trust. So you heard Jeremy Hunt there saying, why didn't we have this debate during the election? I think that's what the public will be asking as well. 70 billion in spending, 40 billion in tax rises yesterday, not to mention the winter fuel allowance cut, which you've already heard about. None of this was in the manifesto just 4 months ago. And the question is, do the public think that's okay, that's fine, they had to do that? Do they buy the 22 billion black hole excuse or reason? And do they feel better off in 5 years as they are being promised? That's an open question, because we will not see the effects of this budget in people's pay slips immediately. The way it's been structured through national insurance rises on employers and other taxes other than those on PAYE pay slips, you won't feel it month to month, but over time, do workers see their pay rises aren't coming in as they would expect? Is the labour market more constrained? Are they unable to get that new job they were hoping for? That's the question. And as I said, it's not something that was discussed prior to the election.
What do you make about this argument that the OBR has been politicised? Jeremy Hunt has been very vocal about that this week. But they didn't substantiate this figure, did they? This £22 billion black hole that we've heard so very much about. They actually put that figure at about half of that. And then in terms of the growth forecasts, not on Rachel Reeves' side either. I mean, that argument doesn't stand up now, does it?
Yeah, I think both sides will be upset with the OBR. As you said, Jeremy Hunt was frustrated before the budget because they were criticising his figures, and now Rachel Reeves, after the budget, is having some explaining to do because that £22 billion black hole isn't, as you say, isn't supported by the OBR's analysis. The OBR have really been a political football, I would say, for the last 2 years, ever since the mini-budget, when they weren't included in the figures. They weren't allowed to review Kwasi Kwarteng, the then Chancellor, and Liz Truss's package. Ever since then, Labour have been very, very keen to rely on the OBR and to strengthen them in government, as they are now doing, to prove that their numbers add up and to prove that they're fiscally responsible. That was something very important to them in the general election campaign. Well, now, they might have shot themselves in the foot a little bit because, as we just said, the OBR aren't giving them a free ride over their own figures either, so it remains to be seen whether that's a good move or not, but it was certainly a deliberate strategy during the election campaign.
Adam, thank you. Let's head to Snowdonia for you this morning, and we can talk to farmer Gareth Wynne-Jones, because one of the issues, obviously, Gareth, is inheritance tax and the way this is now going to apply to family farms, where those farms are passed down from generation to generation, now no longer exempt from inheritance tax. What impact is that going to have?
Well, it's the final nail in the agricultural coffin. No farmer can afford to die. That's the sadness of it now. But everybody's, you're going to have to leave this earth at some point. We've got to think, it sounds like a lot, £1 million, but, this is our factory floor. The land is really all we've got. Every farm will have a farmhouse as well. And I would say that the majority of the family farms are all going to be worth more than £1 million. If they'd have put 2, 3 million or maybe 4 million on that, that would have been maybe a little bit better. But it's just ridiculous, and we feel so frustrated. I'll give you an example. So my father and his 3 brothers, none of them, my father's 88, by the way, never had the passport, never went on holiday, never bought expensive cars. They invested all their money back into land, hopefully for the next generation to have it. We're custodians of this land. We literally don't own it, but we are then passing it on to the next generation. But where's that next generation going to come from? Do they want that burden when they take that farm over of either going for another big mortgage or selling parts of that land that is producing food which is affordable to the masses? So again, another nail in the agricultural coffin. And I don't think farmers are going to sit back and take this. I honestly don't. We have mental health at its lowest. The agricultural sector is on its knees, and then this Labour government come again and attack us. We're working people. We pay our taxes. We've paid taxes on the land. We pay taxes on everything we do, and then we have to pay taxes when we leave this earth. It's ridiculous, and it's a burden for the next generation, and it's going to hit family farms absolutely terribly.
Do you feel blindsided by this, Gareth? Because the Secretary of State for the Environment, Steve Reed, did say last year that there would be no changes to the agricultural property relief plan. And when Labour says they're going to protect working people, you can't imagine any harder working people than our country's farmers.
We totally feel betrayed, heartbreaking. I've got quite a big social media following, and the messages last night, we've even heard of one farmer taking his own life pre-budget, and it was all to do about the worry about when he was going to leave, that he was going to have another massive bill for his children. The mental health of the industry is at an all-time low. And, these people, like Keir Starmer was in, I think, the 2023 NFU conference saying how he's going to protect family farms, how he's going to back them. What's he done? He's absolutely ripped the beating heart out of the industry again. And it's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. I have never, ever felt so frustrated and angry about something, you know, with everything that's been thrown at us, especially in Wales. We've got a lot of things on the change. We've got these NVZs and we've got TB. We've got our new farming SFS. And then we have this on top of it. You just don't know where to turn. And people are really, really frustrated. They had an opportunity to protect the family farm. They had an opportunity to make sure that we could produce food in this country affordably. And, you know, food security should be at the top of their list. And what they've done, again, is they've taken another chunk of our future away from us by putting this inheritance tax on 20% over £1 million. Just heartbreaking, absolutely heartbreaking.
OK, Gareth Wynne-Jones, we've got to leave it there, but we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Oh, it's bleak, isn't it, for farmers? Really, really bleak.
Yes, it's not good. Food security, as you say, it affects us all.
Yeah.
This is the issue, and it could well affect. You know, people end up paying for outside companies coming in to buy a farm, or inheritance tax having to be paid by family members. Then prices are going to go up as well, so it will affect us all that way. Anyway, are you going to lose or gain from the budget? Well, you can find out thanks to GB News and tax advisory firm Blick Rothenberg that we've paired up with did provide you with a free online budget calculator. Scan the QR code now or head to gbnews.com/budget2024.
Now, at GB News, we love to hear what you think, so every day we'll be running our poll of the day. And today we're asking, do you feel like a winner or a loser from the budget? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned. The final result will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show.
Yeah, and if you want to get involved in that, then just head to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, at 20 minutes past 7, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Well, the death toll in Spain continues to climb. A 71-year-old British man amongst nearly 100 fatalities resulting from flash flooding. Rescuers continue to search for those still missing following what's considered to be the worst natural disaster to hit Spain in 50 years.
Taiwan has shut down schools and offices as the powerful Typhoon Kongray approaches. The typhoon is expected to make landfall on Thursday evening local time, bringing with it high winds and flooding to much of the island's east coast and northern areas.
And stateside, Donald Trump has hit back at President Biden after he called Trump supporters garbage. President Trump told Wisconsin supporters they're the heart and soul of America and praised sanitation workers as he got behind the wheel of a garbage truck.
Kamala and Joe call all of us, and them, even them, garbage. I call you the heart and soul of America. You are the heart and soul.
John has been in touch on that, saying, I think Biden has been taking tips from Angela Rayner regarding those with different political views and name-calling. Scum or garbage? Not a lot of difference.
She did do that. That was a bad look. That was a bad look for her.
I don't like name-calling.
No.
Especially not in politics.
No, I don't think there's any need for it, though. To be fair, Donald Trump has done the same himself. It works on both sides that way. Susanna says, how kind of Biden to hand the presidency to Trump. Yes, I have to say, could well have done it with that comment.
Because it is on a knife edge and it will only take comments, won't it?
Yeah,
won't take a lot.
Right, let's see what the weather's going to do for you over here in Blighty. Here's Alex.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Happy Halloween. Here's your GB News breakfast weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. For some, there is some eerie fog around first thing this morning, but much of this will clear away, and then it is generally going to be a dry but rather cloudy day for most of us. The exception being across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the north-northwest. Here it is going to be a little bit wet, some rain pushing through, the most persistent rain for the Northern Isles. There will also be some strong gusty winds here, could be some gales in exposed spots, but elsewhere across much much of the UK. Like I said, staying largely dry, not a great amount of sunshine to be had. Pretty cloudy, but pretty mild as well, with temperatures peaking around 15 or 16 Celsius. Now, if you are heading out trick-or-treating this evening, for many it is going to stay largely dry, but still the wet weather continuing across particularly northern and western parts of Scotland. The rain not especially heavy, but it could be quite persistent at times. A drier story further east and south across Scotland and across Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales. Apart from the odd spot of drizzle, it is going to be mostly fine this evening. Some breaks in the cloud, but generally a pretty cloudy night, and so that does mean temperatures not dropping a huge amount, and so it should be pretty mild, good for not needing a coat over the top of your costume. Overnight we are going to see rain in the north, edging a little bit further southwards across the northern half of Scotland, staying drier elsewhere and sticking with those largely cloudy skies, so that's why it's going to be a fairly mild night for many of us, although there again could be some mist and fog patches developing, particularly in the south. Any mist and fog will clear as we go through the morning, and then otherwise through tomorrow, a similar day to today for many of us, albeit a wetter story across much of Scotland as a front edges its way further southwards, breaking up as it goes though, with some colder air piling into the far north, so a chilly story in the far north of Scotland, again pretty mild elsewhere, albeit not as mild as today. Have a great Halloween. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, how would you like to win your entire Christmas this year? Well, we're giving you the chance to do just that with the very latest Great British Giveaway. Here are all the details that you need.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. First, we'll give you £20,025 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you £5,000 to spend on all of your Christmas presents. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with a further £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. And the best news, you'll get it all in time for the big day. For your chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yeah, best of luck to you. Still to come, we're getting budget reaction from our People's Panel. That's in a couple of minutes.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference
It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Morning, it's 7:29. Now, a tax bombshell for Britain. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has unveiled £40 billion in tax rises in Labour's first budget in more than 14 years.
Well, it's returned to big spending, high taxing and more borrowing, putting the economy on a low-growth trajectory.
Well, yeah, which is a worry.
Well, that's according to the OBR.
Yes.
For the next 4 years at least.
It shouldn't be a low-growth trajectory. We'll talk to the Chancellor about that in the next half hour. To react to the budget, though, we're joined by our lovely panel of GB News viewer Barry Tomes, Marketing Director Polly Arrowsmith and the head of Ipswich High School, Dan Browning. Good to see all of you. Barry, let's start with you, should we? Where does this leave you? Do you think you're going to be better off, worse off, or pretty much the same?
Good morning, Stephen, Ellie, everyone. Me personally, I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled about the fuel duty not going up. That's definitely because that would have affected everybody. I don't want the NHS to get a single penny more until it's completely looked at properly, because it's a waste of money. As a pensioner, the extremes to me in this budget, I totally support the minimum wage, 100%. So someone on the new minimum wage, probably 40 hours, gets about $21,000 a year. That's the minimum wage that they need to live, to survive and have a reasonable standard of life. I agree with that 100%. I'm 67-year-old, I'm a pensioner, and my pension is £8,163. I'm expected to live on that. Where's the common sense in that?
Are you going to be affected by the cut to winter fuel payments, Barry?
Oh, yeah, I won't get it, yeah, absolutely.
And how does winter look for you then?
Well, I live in a very, very big old Victorian house that's, is an old Victorian house. Fortunately, I got central heating. It used to cost about £350 a month to have on. It's now £700. So the log burners are on, unfortunately.
In terms of that money which is needed to be raised, Dan Browning, a lot of that, of course, a chunk of that at least is coming from VAT on private schools, which is going to affect you. I mean, is that something you as a school can absorb, or will that have to be passed on?
No, good morning, Stephen. Morning, Ellie. Some of it will have to be passed on. Given the fact that it's Halloween, I think the best word I would use to describe the budget from my school's point of view would be scary. Our school's a small school, a community school. Financially planning for this in the middle of the academic year, which is very challenging, trying to predict pupil numbers. I think many families and prospective pupils have been waiting for the budget yesterday. Plus, on top of the VAT, we've also got the National Insurance employer contributions going up, which will have an enormous effect. So I think probably two key things to consider for independent schools. Firstly, the impact on parents, the worry. They're hardworking, they're making sacrifices already. And the prospect of their children, their sons and daughters, possibly having to move, leave their friends, their support networks, possibly mid-year, and also for those children who are already studying for GCSEs and A-level, a change at that point in their education could be enormous. And the second is, the focus on children. We have to remember that this is a tax on education that will impact on children.
I was going to ask you, what are you hearing from families, from those parents? Are they telling you that they are going to have to pull their children out of your school and put them into the state school?
Our parents are very, very supportive of our school and really do buy into our ethos, and no parent would want to do that. But I know that there are some that have certainly considered it and have equal amount of worries about local state schools being full.
Polly, for you, you work in a sort of small or medium-sized business, don't you? What impact are you going to see as a business with things like the national insurance contribution for employers going up?
Yeah, well, we worked out, so our base salary bill is £1 million a year. Oof. So our increase will be another 17,500.
And what does that mean for you as a business?
Well, it's going to mean that we won't have the headroom to give perhaps salary increases. We're going to have to find that money, and probably ultimately we'll have to pass it on to customers. We're very fixed in our costs. We fix costs for 12 months in advance, so we won't be able to get initial cost back. We'll have to do that in future. So there's no doubt we'll have to pass cost on. And from what I can understand from business rates as well, that will have to be passed on as well.
The interesting thing is, Polly, with all of this, of course, that isn't technically classed, is it, as a tax on working people? But ultimately, as you say, it's working people that will have to pay the price.
Yes, it's going to filter through. I live in a place called Islington in London. We have a lot of restaurants, bars and cafes, and the average business rates are going to go up for £5,000 a premise. So, if you are on the edge, like if you've got a coffee bar or you've got a pub or you've got a restaurant, and a lot of our local ones are suffering, I think we're going to see a lot of costs being increased to the consumer, and I think we're going to see quite a few businesses go under.
And Polly, this is meant to be a chancellor that is striving for growth. Rachel Reeves is talking about being the most pro-growth chancellor in history. But then listening to you there talking about not being able to give people pay rises, potentially limiting the number of people that you can hire, you can't expand a business in that environment, can you? You can't grow.
It's going to be very difficult. I voted Labour. I thought that was probably the best thing for our economy. I think she was very hands-tied. But you are right, it's difficult. And I think it will be a low-growth economy now for the next few years. So I'm disappointed, but at the same time, I was expecting it. So in some ways, it's actually hit me a lot harder. The business a lot harder than we expected. In some ways, it's actually lighter. But on a personal note, we were buying a second property. So we've just found out, I blindsided, we've got another £8,000 bill if we want to go ahead with the property. So that's the additional 2% stamp duty. Was not expecting that.
OK, look, really good to see you all this morning. Polly, Dan, Barry, thanks very much indeed. So no one particularly happy out of our panel so far this morning.
Yeah, even a Labour voter in there as well. Let us know what you think and how the budget is affecting you. gbnews.com/you'll-say.
Still to come, we've got all the sport with Aidan, the latest on Jack Draper, who's on a bit of a winning streak in the tennis.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in Dundee on the A92. There's a lane closed southbound out of Dundee over the Tay Road Bridge for emergency repairs. In Lincolnshire, the A631 is blocked each way for an investigation between Gainsborough and Beckingham. In Northamptonshire, there are delays on the A43 each way because of emergency repairs between Collie Weston and Easton on the Hill. In London on the A4, the middle lane is blocked eastbound where a van's broken down at the Hogarth roundabout in Chiswick, causing queues back along the M4 towards there. In Essex, the Dock Approach Road is blocked westbound by an accident between Grays and the A13 Baker Street interchange at Tilbury, causing queues. And on the M26 in Kent, it's taking nearly half an hour in westbound delays approaching the M25 because of roadworks. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's sports time. Aidan McGee is here with us. Good to see you, Aidan.
Good to see you both.
Where would you like to begin?
Well, Ben Stokes, I mean, I know you've covered this a little bit in the paper review, but I just thought I'd go into a little bit more depth, because it's a horrible story, isn't it? And he announced yesterday on social media that his house had been burgled in the presence of his wife and children while he was away in Pakistan. And now it is indeed. And so, I mean, they took his OBE, they took what he describes as jewellery and valuables and a good deal of personal items that had great sentimental value. And there's been a spate of these going back probably 15 years. It used to just be footballers, didn't it? Especially in the Northwest. And it's one of those things where, you know, a thief can always ascertain where a player or competitor or their target is going to be because they can see them on television, they can see them in live football. And they know there's a good chance that their items are going to be up for grabs, and that's exactly what they do. So this happened in Castle Eden in County Durham, and as I say, it used to be footballers, and now when we saw Mark Cavendish, didn't we, last year, his case went to court, the cyclist, and we're seeing Ben Stokes again now. And, you know, I just think that if you're a professional sportsman, can you really go away, especially to the other side of the world, and concentrate on peak performance if this, you know, there's a chance this might happen at home. I know.
You wonder about security, though. I mean, footballers, we know, have got pots of cash.
Yes.
So could have very good security.
I know somebody did security for a player, actually.
But cricketers, I don't know what sort of money they make. I mean, it's not on the same scale, is it?
No, it isn't. But I think that I think as England captain, you'd be well looked after on a central contract. But I mean, as you say, it's a huge worry. He actually got 30. He was out for 37, I think, on the day. Which is of the attack when playing for England, which is well below what he would normally get. So the evidence would be that it was affecting his performance, and it's a real worry because if it's starting to move away from footballers and into high earning performance in other sports, I think that's a dangerous trend. I really do.
Absolutely. Should we look at the tennis? And Jack Draper's on a winning streak, isn't he?
Oh, massively. I mean, look, we saw glimpses of his talent. Well, more than a glimpse. I mean, he got to the semi-final of the US Open, didn't he? And we thought that in that defeat against Yannick Sinner, we thought that he might be affected by going deep into the tournament. Maybe the pressure. He suffered deep anxiety. He had a lot of sickness as well on court. And despite taking a set in that match, he came up short really. But the trajectory has improved or continued upwards. I mean, he won. We mentioned him last week, didn't we? Competing in Vienna, he won that match against. I can't remember who he was up against, but no, he's up against Taylor Fritz last night in the Paris Masters, the first round. And I think we saw this with Andy Murray. He started to perform well in the breakthrough in the Grand Slams. but it's how you do in the ATP events since then. I mean, he was Draper had won in Stuttgart earlier in the year as well, Stuttgart tournament. So, look, we're 8 months out from Wimbledon, but we're only a couple of months out from the Australian Open, and I think he could go deep into that tournament as well.
Well, let's hope so.
Well, let's hope so, yeah, because I mean, there isn't an obvious heir apparent to Andy Murray in the tennis. I'm really hoping that Jack Draper can be the man.
What's Damon Hill on about? He's said Max Verstappen is driving like Dick Dastardly.
I love that pronunciation of Max Verstappen. I think that is actually the correct.
Well, I do try.
Well, it will be from Mr. Stephen.
I know, we tend to call it Verstappen. I know, yeah. I used to drive like him after I passed my test.
I think you still do. Whereas we've got Penelope Pitstop over here. But I mean, look, I know he's not happy. I know the stewards weren't happy, and Verstappen was docked about 20 seconds.
Yeah, he was.
But shouldn't they be driving aggressively? Isn't that part of the point?
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, you try and gain every possible advantage you can get. I mean, ask most people in sport now, any sport, they'll tell you that marginal gains are a key feature of any discipline. But yeah, Damon Hill, who was a '96 F1 champion, you remember him, don't we? Back in the '90s, son of I can't remember his dad's. What was his dad's name? His dad was a big star as well. I can't remember. Anyway, he was from a great family, so he knows what he's talking about. And he said that Verstappen is a world champion, incapable of competing fairly, and he uses Red Bull car as a weapon, or like a weapon, in a Dodgems race. Now, I can't help thinking that maybe one of the key protagonists, like a Lewis Hamilton or Lando Norris, one of the British drivers, has maybe had a word with him and said, look, it's time to increase the pressure on Max Verstappen. He's had it his own way too often in the last few years. We're waiting, of course, next year for Lewis Hamilton to join Ferrari. We wonder if that might tip the edges in favour of him. I don't think it will, because I just don't think you can just knock someone off their perch after 3 years of dominance like that when you've been off the race. But I wonder if it's going to get more interesting next year. But yeah, he said that the 2 10-second penalties, as you say, but he's competing in Brazil this weekend. Lando Norris, there's a real rivalry between those two developing as well. So we'll see how it plays out in the next few years.
OK.
Aidan, thank you.
Thanks, Muttley. Perfect.
Very good. Do stay with us. We're going through the papers now. Next, actually, in 2 minutes' time, with Dr. Renee Honderkamp and Nikki Hodgson. That's next.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
National Trust Director General has said something rather curious. She's admitted that 70% of the charity's staff are Union Jack-hating progressive activists. Yes, this was speaking at a Labour Party fringe event. The boss of the charity, Hilary McGrady, acknowledged that there was a gap between her staff's views and the views held by the wider public. So was she being honest? Joining me now to discuss this is historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadel-Mankoo, who I believe is with me. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Can this be true?
The founders of the National Trust and later figures involved in it, like my hero James Lees Milne, were really motivated by love of nation. But I think that love of nation in the Trust has become actively, national self-loathing. And that's really the state of modern Britain. And with the Trust, I mean, what we've done is we've actually entrusted our national heritage to those people who actually actively despise our national heritage. And it's, it's utter madness.
Have these people wanted to take over charities like the National Trust for their political ends, or is it just something that happens? Is it just the type of people who work in charities?
This has been part of the long march through the institutions, that people need to understand that Britain is now a post-revolutionary society. So the buildings that house our institutions look the same, but the people who now run them bear no comparison to the generations who lovingly built and ran them. They are cuckoos in the nest, and we need to understand that. And of course, once you realise that, of course, that explains completely why, you know, the National Trust and others have crudely tried to denigrate our national heroes and link them and their houses to colonialism and slavery, as they ludicrously tried to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, time for the papers this morning with GP Dr. Rennie Honderkamp and the author and commentator Nikki Hodgson. Morning, you two.
Morning.
Let's have a look at the budget, should we? Because it's on every single front page apart from the Daily Star. Of
course.
What's your thought? They've had a chance to absorb it a bit, Nikki. What do you think?
I think it's a huge gamble. And you know I'm left. I'm a Labour voter. I voted for them recently. I'm not a member of the party. But I think it is just taking such a gamble with growth that actually, considering the rhetoric that's come from the Labour Party for the past year, 2 years, leading up to the election, about how broken Britain is because of the Tories, it doesn't even make sense to presume that growth can fix it so quickly. I mean, we're going to have so many things pushed down the line, you know, little increases in payments of all sorts of things that are just going to be pushed down the line. I mean, the Sun has got on the front page something about, oh, well, at least petrol prices haven't gone up. And it's like, well, yet.
Yeah.
You know? Here is 1p a pint cheaper. Is that going to really change your life? I don't know.
Well, I think if you consider that they did campaign on that they would achieve growth, that they would grow us out of the problems that we have, that's fine. And I accept that that probably is the only way to get out of all of the issues that we have. This isn't going to deliver growth. I don't believe it's going to deliver growth. I think it's going to stifle growth, and that's the gamble.
It might deliver a better NHS.
It's not going to deliver a better NHS because the NHS needs root and branch reform. It's savable, completely savable, and I do believe that. But throwing more money into the NHS is going to change nothing, I guarantee.
Well, apart from the fact, I mean, Wes Streeted, all this plan about all this new technology he wants to bring in and all the rest of it, which would be very good, but presumably some of this money is going to pay for that, is it? I mean, you've got to... rather than just chucking it in the pot.
Well, the NHS track record on introducing new technology.
I know, it's very bad.
So appalling, the billions that have been wasted. And it's because it's so disjointed in all of the systems. In GP land, we have about 4 different systems that different GPs can choose to work on that then can't talk to each other, obviously. So the new technology, I think, is disastrous. The hubs, we keep hearing this word hubs. This is not a new idea.
No.
These hubs were going to be introduced 10 years ago to bring everything together. They didn't work then, they're not going to work now because they're not going to be able to staff them.
No, and I mean, I've worked in admin for the NHS, you know, years ago I did, in lots of different departments, and even now, people are still using paper records. There's a medical records room in hospitals. Nothing... The digitalisation of data is a massive undertaking, and all Wes Streeting is talking about is things like, oh, AI is going to make sure that people don't miss appointments.
It's words.
But,
words.
It's like fundamental, also...
I'm desperately trying to cling on to some hope here. Neither of you are helping.
In terms of health and social care, Dr. Renee, what would you have liked to have heard yesterday?
I actually think we need to bring the care system and the NHS together. That it needs to be one big system, one big pot of money, because once it is, people will start taking the care system seriously. We have a massive problem with an elderly population that's getting sicker. It might be great that people are living longer, but they're not living better lives. They're getting sicker and they need care. It's the biggest strain that we have now, and it's also the biggest stop on people moving from hospital. 13,000 people, as we sit here, are sitting in hospital that don't need to be there. We need the budget to be one, and we need to address it as one. Treat carers with the respect that they deserve, doing the most important job, I think, in society.
Nikki, something totally different in the Star. Ghosts only live for 100 years.
Oh, my goodness. I don't really know what to make of this story. Well, apparently... the ghosts that used to be around are fading out, and new ghosts, very young, according to some paranormal investigators. And this kind of baffles me, because isn't the whole point of ghosts that they're ageless, interminable?
I'm very confused by this.
I mean, well, it's really apparently to do with sightings. There are fewer sightings reported of ghosts.
Is that because we're less gullible?
Well, that's what I think.
Is it also because we're less religious?
I also think that.
You know, so we don't talk to people about the afterlife and heaven. And...
No, I mean, the Victorians were, you know, obsessed with seances and ghosts and, you know, people in walls and all that kind of stuff. But I think back to when I was a kid and you go to an historic building and there'd always be someone saying there's a ghost that lives here.
Well, I know. You like to think that, don't you? Right, you two, thank you. We're having a slightly earlier break because we're back with the Chancellor in just a sec.
Let's have a look at...
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Happy Halloween. Here's your GB News breakfast weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. For some, there is some eerie fog around first thing this morning, but much of this will clear away, and then it is generally going to be a dry but rather cloudy day for most of us. The exception being across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the north-northwest. Here it is going to be a little bit wet, some rain pushing through, the most persistent rain for the Northern Isles. There will also be some strong gusty winds here, could be some gales in exposed spots, but elsewhere across much of the UK, like I said, staying largely dry, not a great amount of sunshine to be had, pretty cloudy but pretty mild as well, with temperatures peaking around 15 or 16 Celsius. Now, if you are heading out trick-or-treating this evening, for many it is going to stay largely dry, but still the wet weather continuing across particularly northern and western parts of Scotland. The rain not especially heavy, but it could be quite persistent at times. A drier story further east and south across Scotland and across Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales. Apart from the odd spot of drizzle, it is going to be mostly fine this evening. Some breaks in the cloud, but generally a pretty cloudy night, and so that does mean temperatures not dropping a huge amount, and so it should be pretty mild, good for not needing a coat over the top of your costume. Overnight we are going to see rain in the north, edging a little bit further southwards across the northern half of Scotland, staying drier elsewhere and sticking with those largely cloudy skies, so that's why it's going to be a fairly mild night for many of us, although there again could be some mist and fog patches developing, particularly in the south. Any mist and fog will clear as we go through the morning, and then otherwise through tomorrow, a similar day to today for many of us, albeit a wetter story across much of Scotland as a front edges its way further southwards, breaking up as it goes though, with some colder air piling into the far north, so a chilly story in the far north of Scotland, again pretty mild elsewhere, albeit not as mild as today. Have a great Halloween. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. ScotRail train services have been suspended between Neilston and White Craigs because of a signalling problem. On the M60 in Greater Manchester, the clockwise exit at junction 20 at Higher Blakely is partly blocked by an accident. It's sloped towards there. In Lincolnshire, the A631 is closed in both directions between Gainsborough and Beckingham for an investigation. In London, Victoria Park Road in Hackney is blocked off Lauriston Road after an accident causing queues. Also in London, on the A4, the middle lane is blocked eastbound, where a van's broken down at the Hogarth roundabout at Chiswick, causing queues back along the M4 towards there. In Essex, the Dock Approach Road is blocked each way by an accident between Grays and the A13 at the Baker Street interchange at Tilbury, causing queues. And trains in Cornwall have been stopped between Liscard and Loo because of a signalling problem. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. First, we'll give you £20,025 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you £5,000 to spend on all of your Christmas presents, with a further £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. You'll get it all in time for the big day. For your chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A bombshell budget as Britain faces £40 billion in tax hikes.
The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, signals the return of tax and spend labour.
This budget raises taxes by £40 billion. Any Chancellor standing here today would have to face this reality.
So what's it going to mean for you? Injecting huge funds into the NHS and schools, but business bearing the brunt of the pain.
The largest real terms growth in day-to-day NHS spending outside of COVID since 2010.
But for drivers and drinkers, hopefully not at the same time, some good news as the Chancellor freezes the fuel duty and takes a penny off your pint.
So I have decided today to freeze fuel duty next year, and I will maintain the existing 5p cut for another year too. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol pumps next year.
Well, we're going to be joined by the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, in just a moment.
In other news, a British man is among the 95 people killed in flash floods as they cause horror and devastation in Spain. We'll be live in Valencia shortly.
And also, we're heading to Europe's biggest Halloween festival in Londonderry, where 100,000 visitors are going to take part in the fun.
Are you heading out trick-or-treating this evening and wondering whether you need a coat or umbrella? Well, for most of us, the answer is no, but I'll have the details coming up.
It's 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Loads of you getting in touch on the budget. Paul says, I thought Labour was going to reform the NHS, not give it more billions to waste.
It's an interesting one because we heard, was it last week or the week before, about all this tech, which the Health Secretary wants to bring on board, which will help people without them having to go into hospital. That's got to be paid for. Now, that's great if it works and if that's where some of the money is going. If it all just goes into the big pot, will we ever see it ever again? Mm-hmm. That's a concern.
Yeah, people want to see this root and branch reform. Anna says, stop saying that the carer's allowance has gone up. I am a full-time carer for my 88-year-old father. I am not in a position in work outside of my caring situation for him. So my carer's allowance payment has remained the same. I work 24/7, 52 weeks of the year. I earn £80 a week.
Yeah.
She says.
Well, it's gone up for some, but not others. Which is always, there's always people who will lose out on these things. Unfortunately, I mean, this is the issue. Andrew says penny off your pint is smoke and mirrors for the gullible, and things like that. I mean, they are the sort of little white flags, aren't they? They're meant to keep us happy. So the take a penny off alcohol duty and a freeze on fuel duty. Doesn't stop your petrol going up, but it means they're not going to tax us anymore on the petrol, which is something. It's something, but it's still going to cost a lot of people, a lot of businesses, a lot of money. Is that going to cost people jobs? Possibly.
Possibly. On the pint issue, Chang says, can someone discuss and explain to me why 1 pence off a pint is relevant in 2024? Is this Chancellor so out of touch that she thinks that pints sold are not rounded up to the nearest 5p?
Yes, yeah. Well, I'm gullible on that one because I don't often buy a pint.
Well, you don't actually drink, do you?
No.
So that doesn't affect you at all.
Not anymore. I'm trying to think what we did back in the day when I used to work behind the bar. I don't know if we rounded it up or not. Probably. Mary's been in touch. This is Stephen. How can you seriously think the NHS is going to improve? Well, I don't know that it is, Mary. I don't know that it is. I live in hope, but whether it will improve or not, I just don't know.
And all parties are agreed that it has to.
Well, this is the thing.
It needs to. For its own survival, it needs to. And that's what Wes Streeting was saying the other day when that additional funding was announced for that tech. It was... It's in need of reform desperately in order to survive.
Well, it certainly is. So it's not about thinking anything is going to happen. It's just saying to you, Mary, you know, well, this is what they say, and let's sort of vaguely hope that it will. Otherwise, we may as well all just go on to the nearest beach and shove our heads in the sand, really. I mean, it's, you know, what do you do? What do you say with any government, as far as that goes, isn't it? As we wait for the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who's promised to pop on about now, let's just talk to our political correspondent, Adam Cherry. There is an awful lot of money being raised here, but an awful lot of questions, Adam, as well, about what is going to go on, what impact this is going to have on growth in the UK.
Absolutely, yeah. This is an enormous package. 70 billion in spending, 40 billion in tax rises, and ultimately the question is, does the Chancellor have the mandate for this? This might be something which we'll present to her shortly. Does she have a mandate to implement such an enormous package when just 4 months ago, it might seem like a long time, they promised a manifesto. They held up a manifesto that said was fully costed and would require no more taxes. They had no plans to rise any other taxes other than that document, and that had about £8.5 billion worth of tax hikes in it on things like non-doms and VAT on private schools. So with such a massive £40 billion tax rise, and especially clobbering working people through this stealth tax on national insurance through employer contributions, do people say, actually, we were promised hope and change and transparency, and actually, you know, we've been deceived here a little bit? It's ultimately a real question of trust and credibility, and something that she will have to grapple with, particularly if, as you say, growth is anemic and people feel the squeeze on their wage packets.
What do you make of this black hole, this £22 billion black hole that we've heard so very much about, Adam? And the OBR actually have failed to substantiate that figure. It's about half of that £22 billion.
Yeah, I think it's a problem for them because, as Rachel Reeves throughout the election campaign, and even before that, for the last couple of years, has venerated the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, promised to strengthen them and promised to follow in their footsteps and pay much more attention to them than perhaps certainly Liz trusted 2 years ago. Now the OBR are saying that her figures don't add up either, so she's in a bit of a catch-22 there. As you say, it's roughly half, 9-10 billion that they found of spending in their analysis yesterday. 22 billion, I mean, some of that comes from the pay rises which they immediately gave to public sector workers before the budget. So that's another question for her. Again, it's just a question of credibility and trust that ultimately is the focus of this, and whether the public buy into it and buy into a longer-term view, as the Rachel Reeves said yesterday, buy into a longer-term view of growth and of prosperity.
Yeah, well, look, in some respects, that's not a bad thing, Adam. I mean, we criticise governments. We've criticised governments for generations, saying they don't take a long-term view, and they should do, and look outside of their electoral sphere and say, well, this is where we need to be in 5 or 10 years. But the problem even with that is the OBR is saying in 5 years' time we're not going to be seeing much growth.
Absolutely right, Stephen. That's the point, isn't it? The OBR analysis says that growth looks pretty weak, 1.5, 1.6%. Mortgage rates will go up higher than they would have done. Wage growth will be slower. Rachel Reeves is saying this openly, even in her budget, in her analysis, that the wage growth will be lower than it would have been, and prices will be higher. So, again, look, whichever way you cut this is a massive tax and spend budget, and taxes have to be paid by somebody somewhere, and that will influence growth, which is supposed to be her #1 mission.
And Adam, just before we let you go, I just wanted to ask your thoughts on the working person that we've heard so much about, haven't we? Labour not wanting to tax working people, promising not to raise taxes for working people. But inadvertently, through what we heard yesterday, the working person is going to have a harder life in terms of national insurance contributions for employers going out, which means in turn people further down the line might not be able to earn more, get another job, and then bus fares up 50%. I mean, who are getting buses? It's working people. It's all of these inadvertent pledges now that are going to affect the working person.
Yeah, I think Labour really struggled with this definition of what a working person is and who they are. And really it's a result of boxing themselves in a little bit during the election campaign by promising not to raise national insurance, income tax or VAT. That really is a definition of a working person. It's does my pay slip change month on month as a result of this government and of this budget? The answer in the short term is no, so they feel like they've met their definition of protecting working people. But as you say, of course, taxes have to be paid by someone somewhere, and if you're raising taxes on employing people and giving them pay rises, it is those employed people who, by Rachel Reeves' own admission, will feel the pinch. So that is the question. Do people tolerate that, again, for a long-term prosperity?
Adam, thanks very much indeed. I mean, these are really valid points that need to be put to the Chancellor of the Exchequer. She's doing what they call the media rounds this morning. Always happens, doesn't it? The day after a budget, where they get quizzed on all of this sort of thing. And as with everybody else, we were promised a chat with the Chancellor at 8 o'clock this morning. Well, guess what? It's 10 past now, nearly, 9 minutes past 8. And she was there at our live position. She's now decided she doesn't have time to talk to us, well, which means she hasn't got time to talk to you, which is very disappointing, professionally, in a sense, but it's actually, can I say, I think it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful if they just think they don't want to take questions from us. We don't know what our viewing figures are today, by the way, because you don't find out for 24 hours. A week ago, our viewing figures were 3 times Sky News' figures at the same point. 3 times. Now, she may well talk to them. I don't know if she's been on there already. I just don't know. But she doesn't want to... I'm being told she has been on there this morning. But she doesn't want to talk to you this morning. She doesn't want to explain herself and these decisions to you this morning. And frankly, that's not on. It's not on for this budget, £40 billion tax-raising budget, which is, history-making in and of itself, and she doesn't want to explain it to you. How can that be right?
It is such a shame, isn't it? Such a shame. As you say, not speaking to us means not speaking to the British people, and it is what's going to affect you, what she is outlining in this budget. So it's important that she is held to account. It's important that she is scrutinised, and it's important that she talks to you and explains what she set out yesterday. But she says she didn't have time to do that today. So we're disappointed, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm sure you are as well.
Yeah.
So maybe getting in touch
we were only promised 5 minutes, which is not a lot of time to get... there's so much to talk to her about.
You might get 2 questions, yeah.
Hopefully she will be talking to our political editor later on. Whether I don't know if that's going to be live or pre-recorded. So, you will get a sense later on, but there's nothing quite like having someone live on a TV show to put a bit of pressure on them and to get those answers. It's all about transparency, isn't it? You'd expect it. What I find particularly irritating is that Labour couldn't get on this programme quick enough in the run-up to the election. They were queuing out the door to come on every morning. And now we're seeing a lot less of them.
Yeah. Well, we apologise if you're looking forward to hearing from the Chancellor. We're disappointed too. Do let us know what you think of the budget, how it's affecting you. Do keep your views coming in. We'll continue to share them here on GB News, gbnews.com/your say.
You know, I'm a bit loath to be overly critical in that you don't want to put them off. You don't want them to turn around and say, well, we're not going on there. We just, we've been lambasted. But there are limits, there are lines, and I think, it's not on the day after a budget.
Yeah.
Anyway, regardless of what the Chancellor has or hasn't got to say, you can find out if you're going to lose money or gain any money or stay pretty much the same. Thanks to GB News and advisory firm Blick Rothenberg, we've created a free online budget calculator. So you can scan that QR code on your screen if you're watching on the telly, or if you're on the radio, here's the address for you, gbnews.com/budget 2024.
Now, at GB News, we love to hear what you think. So every day we'll be running our poll of the day. And today we're asking, do you feel like a winner or a loser after the budget? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned. And the final results will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show.
Yeah, if you want to get involved in that, you need to go to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, the death toll in Spain continues to climb, with a 71-year-old British man among the nearly 100 fatalities resulting from devastating flash floods.
Well, rescuers continue to search for those still missing following what's considered to be the worst natural disaster to strike Spain in half a century.
Well, GB News reporter Sophie Reaper joins us live now from Spain. Good to see you this morning, Sophie, and scenes of devastation there, I'm sure.
Oh, right, we've lost Sophie.
Oh.
We've lost that, but we'll get Sophie back up and running. She's in the Valencia region, which has been so badly hit.
And we were hearing this morning that Sophie was finding it very, very difficult to even get to a live position because of the situation there on the roads and, of course, the access to that area. So that might be something to do with the connection issues that we're experiencing now. But at 13 minutes past 8, let's have a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Well, Taiwan shut down schools and offices as Typhoon Kongray approaches. It's expected to make landfall today, later on this evening, bringing high winds and flooding to much of the island's east coast and northern areas.
The first UK case of a potentially deadly strain of the Mpox virus has been detected in London. The UK Health Security Agency says the risk to the UK population remains low. The person involved had been on holiday in Africa and travelled back to London on an overnight flight on October the 21st.
Donald Trump's hit back at President Biden after he called Trump supporters garbage. The former president told people in Wisconsin that they're the heart and soul of America, and he praised sanitation workers as he got behind the wheel of a garbage truck.
Kamala and Joe call all of us, and them, even them, garbage. I call you the heart and soul of America. You are the heart and soul.
Well, let's try and reconnect to Sophie Reaper, shall we, who's in Valencia in Spain for us. And scenes of devastation there, I'm sure, this morning, Sophie.
It's absolutely incomprehensible what we're seeing here in Valencia this morning. When we arrived yesterday, it was already dark, and even then, travelling to our hotel, it was unbelievable what we could see on the roads and travelling through the city centre itself. But now, in the light of day, it is just so shocking, and I think now we can take a look exactly what it looks like here. Now, this really, I think, just conveys the force of nature that here in Valencia and elsewhere in Spain they've felt. These will have been cars that will have just been travelling on the road, just washed aside by the sheer volume of water that they have faced here during the flash flooding, just left abandoned. There's debris meters deep in places, littering the sides. Just abandoned their vehicles, their possessions, even their homes to try and get away from the water, and what is now left debris all over the place. It is truly so shocking. While we've been stood here this morning, we've in the helicopter, travelling at a low height, still attempting to find and rescue people who may have been cut off by the water or by the debris. We've also seen locals. It is truly shocking and truly heartbreaking what we're seeing here, but also we've seen locals walking the street carrying litre bottles of water and supplies, aid, making their way around the streets of Valencia, trying. They need support. Obviously, we're just on the outskirts of the city centre itself, but Valencia, rural towns and villages in its outskirts, places where they perhaps don't have the best signal, places where they perhaps don't have supplies on hand, and these are the places that may well have been cut off by this flash flooding. Now, we know the latest death toll stands at 95, making it the most fatal flash flooding that Spain has seen since 1996. In the last 3 decades, this is the worst flash flooding this country has seen, and it has left absolute scenes of devastation everywhere you look. This entire town, this entire city, the infrastructure has been completely wiped out in places. But now the clean-up operation begins. As I said, the rescue operation is still underway, but people are now pulling together to do what they can. It is truly shocking. I think if we look over here as well, you can just see the scale of it, the distance, where it is just complete, as far as the eye can see, complete destruction and devastation. Really heartbreaking scenes in Valencia this morning, and we're going to be here for the next few days bringing you all the latest as we hear it, as that death toll most likely will continue to rise.
Okay, so if you read that for us in Valencia, thank you very much. Just devastating, isn't it? Can't even imagine the scenes.
Oh, just
all
awful.
Those cars just piled up.
And if you know Valencia, it's a beautiful city.
Beautiful part of the world, yeah.
It's absolutely horrific, isn't it? Right, we're going to do a bit of a gear change. Should we? Because it's Halloween, which is why we've got our masks on this morning. So, very happy Halloween, whatever you're going to be doing to celebrate it.
Well, today, Londonderry is hosting Europe's biggest Halloween festival, attracting around 100,000 visitors.
So who better to send there than our very own scary man, Doogie Beatty, who's in Londonderry. Morning, Doogie.
Good morning. Yes, I've kept my false face on as well, and out to scare the children. Usually scare the wife in the morning, but there you go. Yes, Londonderry, beautiful walled city, here from the 1600s. And over the last 4 or 3 nights, they have been awakening the walls. There's been stuff on these walls every night for family, and it is a cultural event. It's a huge cultural event. As you've said, the largest Halloween festival in Europe. Thousands of people have been up and down these streets last night, and tonight is the carnival. It is the very end of it, with a huge fireworks display with rafts out in the Foyle River just in front of me, and they will be showing their magic to everybody that is standing here to watch them. Now, this is really a community event. It brings across most of the community organisations from the northwest of this part of the province, and they have spent the last 38 years, something that started really in pubs here. The council really embraced it, and I would be one of the hardest people on councils in how they spend their money. But Derry and Strabane Council have been fantastic in what they've done here. They've invested money in it in order to bring more back into the community and more back into the council's budget, and it works very well for them. And earlier on I spoke with Aidan McAteen to find out more about how much was involved.
Hugely important. I mean, the festival is in its 38th years. It was started here locally. It's been developed by the people of the city. People here love Halloween. They love this time of year. As a local authority, between ourselves and our partners at Tourism Northern Ireland and Tourism Ireland, predominantly between ourselves, the local council and Tourism Northern Ireland, we invest around about £450,000 into this event every year, but we know that brings a direct return of well over £3 million.
Well, I could tell you that has to be true, because I tried booking a hotel here last night. There was none to be had. But tonight will be a really big family night in this city. You're advised to get here before 6 o'clock. The parade itself will start just after 7, and the fireworks should be in around about 8:30. But a great night to be had by all.
Brilliant, Doogie. Thank you so much. Lee's been in touch with us today saying for the first time in 3 years, I'll be taking my children out trick or treat, followed by the town's full-on zombie walk.
Ooh.
Apparently, most of the town join in. We'll be finishing with the thriller dance in the town square. That sounds great. St Austell has the zombie walk tradition of over 50 years. Come rain or shine, a great way to bring the town together.
Oh, there you go.
Well, let's hope it's not raining, and let's hope it is shining. Let's get the details with Alex Deacon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Happy Halloween. Here's your GB News breakfast weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. For some, there is some eerie fog around first thing this morning, but much of this will clear away, and then it is generally going to be a dry but rather cloudy day for most of us. The exception being across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the north-northwest. Here it is going to be a little bit wet, some rain pushing through, the most persistent rain for the Northern Isles. There will also be some strong gusty winds here, could be some gales in exposed spots, but elsewhere across much of the UK, like I said, staying largely dry, not a great amount of sunshine to be had, pretty cloudy but pretty mild as well, with temperatures peaking around 15 or 16 Celsius. Now, if you are heading out trick-or-treating this evening, for many it is going to stay largely dry, but still the wet weather continuing across particularly northern and western parts of Scotland. The rain not especially heavy, but it could be quite persistent at times. A drier story further east and south across Scotland and across Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales. Apart from the odd spot of drizzle, it is going to be mostly fine this evening. Some breaks in the cloud, but generally a pretty cloudy night, and so that does mean temperatures not dropping a huge amount, and so it should be pretty mild, good for not needing a coat over the top of your costume. Overnight we are going to see rain in the north, edging a little bit further southwards across the northern half of Scotland, staying drier elsewhere and sticking with those largely cloudy skies, so that's why it's going to be a fairly mild night for many of us, although there again could be some mist and fog patches developing, particularly in the south. Any mist and fog will clear as we go through the morning, and then otherwise through tomorrow, a similar day to today for many of us, albeit a wetter story across much of Scotland as a front edges its way further southwards, breaking up as it goes though, with some colder air piling into the far north, so a chilly story in the far north of Scotland, again pretty mild elsewhere, albeit not as mild as today. Have a great Halloween. Bye-bye.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
At 8:24, just before we head to a break, if you're called Patricia and you've got a daughter called Caroline White, then happy birthday. 82
birthday,
today,
Patricia.
Patricia, and she watches GB News all the time, apparently. So, you know, on this day of doom and gloom, Patricia, hope you have a wonderful birthday.
Yes, happy birthday. And do stay with us because we've got a treat for you. Going to be talking to Tory leadership contender Kemi Badenoch next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 incredible young people from Essex are planning to become the youngest people ever to row, not sail, row, across the Atlantic Ocean.
It's about for 3,000 miles.
It is.
Give or take.
Almost exactly that, Sam.
The 3 flying fish, so-called, consists of Anna, Dunk, Harry, Alan and Rowan Daly, who are preparing to row that 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. It would be the second largest ocean in the world, and the trio are aiming to do that challenge in support of the Teenage Cancer Trust.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that Anna and Harry from the Flying Fish join us now. Very good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
I think the two of you are bonkers, but brilliant. Absolutely incredible what you're doing to raise money for Teenage Cancer Trust. Why did you want to do this?
So our third person, Rowan, his friend actually died. So when he was in secondary school, I believe, one of his peers passed away, and Teenage Cancer Trust supported them and their family a lot. So it was definitely the right charity. Yeah, it was.
Absolutely awful. So you wanted to do something to raise money for teenage cancer. Why rowing?
So my dad did it in 2021.
The trip, the Atlantic trip?
Yeah, he rode it as a pair. Where we live in Essex, they actually build the boats there. So we used to cycle round there past the boatyard, and he got interested and actually did it. He was the first year after COVID. And one night, we all met in the Air Cadets, so one night after Air Cadets, Rowan actually dropped me off home and the boat was outside. We were obviously waiting to get it sold. And I think he was asking some questions and we stood there at my porch and went, Rowan said, I reckon we could do that. And I was like, yeah, I reckon we could. And then we brought Harry on board, and that's kind of how it all came together.
If people are watching and they want to support you, do you have a
Yeah, we've got
GoFundMe page
social
yet?
media platforms at
Right.
The Free Flying Fish. That's Facebook, Instagram and TikTok, and our GoFundMe links in all of the bios on there.
Fantastic.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
8:27, good morning to you. So we're all sort of trying to get to grips, aren't we, with the budget. What does it mean for us as individuals in the immediate terms, sort of direct taxation of things, but also what does it mean in the wider scale of things? You know, we're going to pay more for our bus fares. Are we getting any less pension or any less sort of benefits, or are we going to have problems selling houses or whatever it might be? There's all these different things to build in. Are we going to get a pay rise from our employers or not? I mean, this is where it does impact us all individually. Let's talk to someone who's got to deal with all of this, Kemi Badenoch, who could very well be Conservative Party leader in the coming days. Good to see you this morning. In terms of the Conservative Party with this, I mean, you are very much on the back foot, aren't you, in the sense that you could have done with having a leader in place by the time of this budget?
I don't think anyone would have done better than Rishi Sunak. He has been a chancellor, he's been prime minister, he knows exactly what was going on in the Treasury. There would have been no better person to provide the robust response. Someone who's just finished campaigning in a leadership contest, mugging up before the budget, would not have done anywhere near as well. It was absolutely the right decision, and I think it was a good way for him not just to finish on a high note, but also to defend our record. He was the one who set that record. He had a good story to tell. We left the economy growing. We were the fastest growing G7 economy. Now that is all gone. Rachel Reeves has made a mess of that.
Was a mistake made, though, with a leader not being in place for the run-up to this budget? Because Labour have absolutely dominated the news agenda for the past few weeks in the run-up to this budget. They haven't had an easy few weeks either in terms of winter fuel allowance, that whole debacle, Freebiegate, two-tier policing, accusations towards Sir Keir Starmer. Was it not a failure on your party's behalf that there was no effective opposition? There was no significant intervention by any Tory during that time?
There were multiple interventions by many Conservatives. We did have a leader and we did hold them to account. What you are seeing is what happens when you have a Labour supermajority. There's only 120 Conservative MPs. There's over 400 Labour MPs, another 70 plus Liberal Democrats to the left of them. This is what a Labour supermajority means. It doesn't matter who the leader is if you have so many more of them. What the leader can now do in terms of what we're picking is somebody who can cut through that. Having a leader of the opposition is going to, having a leader of the opposition who can cut through is going to be the biggest difference that we could make. And the party needs to take its time to do that properly. That's what we have been doing. And I think you will find that if I'm the leader of the opposition, we will be getting that cut through. But asking us to rush that decision is not going to be good for the party, and it is definitely not going to be good for the country.
It's going to be interesting if you do get that job, how you are going to phrase your economic policy and economic strategy over the coming months to counter all of this, because we now have something in place which is aimed at growth, so we're told repeatedly, and yet doesn't seem to be doing anything to encourage growth, even according to the Office for Budget Responsibility. So how do you counter that?
So what I've been talking about throughout this contest is that we need to get back to first principles. We ended up talking about policy without rooting it in principles. What is it that we believe in? We are a party that believes not just in business, but in real business, in entrepreneurialism. Small business in particular is full of entrepreneurs, and this budget is terrible for them. What they have done on employers' NI is going to destroy jobs. It is going to lower wages. People will not see pay rises. Employment, disposable income, and salaries are all going to be lower than it was under the Conservatives. That is what the OBR pretty much has said. The OBR has basically said that Labour have chosen tax over growth. 75% of employers' NI is going to be passed on in lower wages. We need to start talking about how Labour, not trusting the private sector, not trusting business, are actually going to damage the economy.
You will want to be, if you become the leader of the opposition in just a few days' time, you will want to be a strong, effective opposition for the next 4.5 years. How would you begin to do that? What does the Tory party mean to you, Kemi Badenoch? Because it has been lost, hasn't it? As you say, just 121 MPs left. What does the party stand for? What is the Tory party? Are you the person that can unite them?
Yes, I do believe I am the person who can unite our party. What I have been saying up and down the country, in those village halls and living rooms, all of the members' events, is that people don't understand what conservatism stands for anymore. We need authentic conservatism. We need confidence in our values, and we need a leader who is brave and courageous enough to actually say what needs to be said. For too long, people have said, oh, there's no difference between Conservatives and Labour, you're all the same. They are now going to find out what that difference is. This is not Tony Blair's Labour. This is Jeremy Corbyn's Labour, with Keir Starmer fronting it. And that is going to be very clear to a lot of people who thought that they were going to get a benign Labour Party, but it's coming after their pensions, it's coming after their income, it's coming after their businesses.
Is there going to be a point where you can turn around and say to people, stuff can be reversed? I mean, pensions and inheritance tax and all that sort of thing, it is going to be a concern for a lot of people. But what is actually going to impact all of us is this farmers' issue, family farms that now can't be passed down without inheritance tax if they're over £1 million, which, of course, a lot of them are, just because of, you know, farmers are asset-rich and cash-poor.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a real concern about how we look after our countryside. There's a real concern about food security with all of this. I mean, would that be something you would quite quickly want to move on?
Yes, of course. I am an MP for a rural constituency. Northwest Essex has a lot of farmers, arable farming, and they have had a pretty tough time, you know, with the weather. It's very hard to plan. Farming needs a lot of stability and a lot of certainty. I want our farmers to have a level playing field. We pile on endless rules and regulations, endless taxes. We have high standards for them, and then we make them compete with imports that come from countries that don't necessarily meet those standards or have to meet many of those regulations. These are some of the things that I have always wanted to change, even when we were in government, making life easier for farmers. Labour has just made everything worse. And this is where I tell people that we live in a two-party system. Voting anything other than Conservative gives you Labour. You vote Liberal Democrat, you get Labour. You vote Reform, you get Labour. We have a Labour supermajority. We need to vote Conservative. That is the only way we will get our country back on track.
OK. Kemi Badenoch, good to see you this morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's a grim picture. It has to be said. There's not... I was going to say there's not a lot to smile about with this budget. I don't know if there's anything to smile about with the budget at the moment.
Well, 1p off your pint.
1p off your pint, yeah.
But you don't drink, so...
Drink, no. But it's also the fact, of course, that the OBR has not turned around and said, well, this is hard now, but we will have good growth coming up. As it is, we're all going to be tight for cash, and that's the way it's going to stay for a very long time by the look of it. So, to turn that around, especially if Christmas is a worry for you this year, how about having Christmas on us?
Yes, we are giving you the chance to do just that with the very latest Great British Giveaway. Here are all the details that you need.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. First, we'll give you £20,025 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you £5,000 to spend on all of your Christmas presents. Christmas lunch, that's on us too, with a further £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. And the best news, you'll get it all in time for the big day. For your chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck to you.
What we're doing next, going through sport?
We are going through the sport, and we're just slightly fuming because the Chancellor is back on television now, but she's being interviewed by the Labour's Shadow Chancellor from a few years ago. So that's going to be hard-hitting, isn't it? Anyway, we're back with sport with Aidan in just a moment.
The latest GB News travel.
In the Highland, the A9 is partly blocked each way by an accident by the Sciax services alongside Cromarty Firth, causing delays each way between Dingwall and Invergordon. Train services are suspended between Neilston and White Craigs because of a signalling problem. On the M6 in the West Midlands, there's a lane closed southbound where a car's broken down between junctions 10 and 9 from the Walsall-Wolverhampton turn towards Birmingham, causing delays. Also in the West Midlands, the A34 is partly blocked southbound by an accident on the High Street in Aston, causing delays. In Norfolk, the A11 is closed northbound from Wymondham to Heatherset, where a tanker's overturned, causing queues towards Norwich. In Essex, the Dock Approach Road is closed each way between Grays and the A13 Baker Street interchange at Tilbury, causing long delays. And in Cornwall, the A390 is closed at Mid Tap House, where a vehicle's overturned. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry, Tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're going through this war now,
Oh, yes,
aren't
we are.
Morning, Aidan.
Morning. Should we talk Man United?
Why not? Why not?
Ruben Amorim.
Amorim, yeah. Good pronunciation, actually. Almost as good as your Max Verstappen.
Try my best.
Last hour.
It's almost like it's a professional, Aidan.
First rodeo.
I know. Brilliant. But, look, he's incoming at Manchester United. It looks for all the world as if we're almost there. And, look, he wants to see out another 3 games at Sporting Lisbon. I just think that, you know, if you've identified your manager, you need to know that you're going to get in the door straight away. And United just haven't done their homework here.
England didn't do it.
No, that's true. But then that's I agree. I agree. Actually, I agree. I think that's probably even worse because I think you need to be able to get your feet under the table immediately. And you consider that's 2 Premier League games that United could be playing. There's a Europa League game as well against PAOK of Salonika. So, look, he's 39 years old. He won 2 league titles in Portugal. I always felt, Stephen, that Man United needs a manager with some kind of dynamism about them, somebody who could shake the dressing room. And I never felt that we got that in the aftermath of Sir Alex Ferguson. When I was working up there, it was always said that as soon as Fergie goes, the place will fall apart. United always denied that. They always said that, you know, he's just privately said, no, he's a cog in a wheel with some players who go out over the line and do the business. But as soon as he left, they haven't won a Premier League title in the 11 years since. So the numbers here, though, are just breathtaking. I mean, the compensation package to Eric Ten Hag, £17.5 million. They could have paid £7.5 million less if they'd taken your advice and sacked him last summer, which a lot of their supporters wanted to happen. They're going to have to pay £8.4 million just to get Amorim out of Sporting Lisbon, and they're not going to get him until November the 10th. It seems that Ruud van Nistelrooy is going to take charge of the side until then. He's not going to be there long term. So, you know, do you really want someone in charge who's not going to be at the club much beyond the next couple of weeks?
He's getting results in, though.
Well, yeah, he won 5-2 last night against Leicester. They're going to be playing Leicester again on November the 10th, and we think Amorim is going to be involved after that. £4.1 million is what they have to pay for Amorim's backroom staff. And there's going to be a payoff for those leaving, including Van Nistelrooy, you would have thought. So that's a package in excess of £30 million. They're going to be paying him £6.5 million a year over 2.5 years. So that's another, what does that work out as, roughly £15 million or something like that. There'll be bonuses as well, all related to success. What are you laughing at?
Well, it's 13 million, but, you know, never mind.
No, 2.5 years, though.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you see. See. I won't tell you what I got in maths. So, look, it's going to be very expensive for them, and some would say they did it. They should have done it a bit.
Do a 2.5-year contract. That's hard.
Well, no, it is because it's starting halfway through the year now, isn't it? Oh, yes. Well, roughly halfway through the year, so it would expire sometime in the middle of 2027, I would think. But look, let's see how he gets on. But Ruud van Nistelrooy was there last night. He looked great, Van Nistelrooy. I thought he shed the tracksuit and got this whole new look. Last night he got a nice roll neck and collars on his shirt.
Well, you like that? Yeah. OK.
Right, we're out of time, darling.
Right.
We are.
Had enough of me.
Yeah. It's like talking to Carol Vorderman this morning. All right, Aidan, thank you very much indeed.
Aidan.
See you tomorrow.
Do stay with us. We'll be going through the papers next.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Osama bin Laden issued a fatwa entitled World Front for Combat Against Jews and Crusaders, and President George W. Bush talked of a crusade on terrorism. In 2010, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula sent a parcel bomb to New York. It was addressed to Reginald of Chatillon. The addressee had died at the hands of Saladin in 1187. Those facts suggest that the long history of struggle between Christendom and Islamic caliphates remains relevant at least to some militant Islamists. That being the case, perhaps we should all understand the past. General Sir Simon Mayle, a former Deputy Chief of the Defence Staff Operations, can be our teacher, particularly if we want to know in gory detail about battles to control Jerusalem, Constantinople, Vienna and the Eastern Mediterranean. His new book is called The House of War. It's an excellent read, which perhaps ought to figure in a national adult curriculum. And he joins me. But let's begin with the word crusade. What was it that drove Christians around Europe to want to cross to the Holy Land and seize Jerusalem?
Context and timing is really important to understand. It's been rather stereotyped as Christian aggression against peace-loving Muslims. The Islamic religion had burst out of the desert in the 7th century with the death of the Prophet Muhammad, and for the next nearly 400 years had Christianity, Christendom, the Christian states absolutely on the back foot. It took the Holy Land, destroyed the Persian Empire, took the North Africa, which was Christian at the time, including Egypt, of course, took Spain all the way into Tours, Charles Martel. 100 years after the death of the Prophet, it expanded in an extraordinary state.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:47. Should we see what's in the papers for you this morning with the GP, Dr. Rennie Honderkamp, and the author and commentator Nikki Hodgson. Good morning.
Good morning.
Get me in the background. Not for the first time. Let's have a look at the budget, should we? Rennie?
Well, I mean, there's so much that is still unsaid, I think, because we need to see this play out. We need to see what the detail is. It's a shame the Chancellor couldn't join you because we were looking forward to that in the green room. I'm just really, really worried about stifling people in this country that get up every day and work really hard, be that in a small business, be that as a worker, or be that as an entrepreneur. And I'm just worried that the people that can will leave, and the rest will be here having their broad shoulders broken, and there will be nothing left.
It's interesting because the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, said he wouldn't have done this. What he would have done is saved £32 billion by taking about 100,000 people off disability living allowance and getting them back to work, which he said would be very, very difficult and a very hard choice, but he would have gone down that route.
Well, there was no mention of this, was there? And I was actually saying to Nikki in the green room, as a GP, I see many people, obviously, that are on long-term allowances, not working. And I struggle that there is a good percentage of people that, yes, they can't do certain jobs, but there is a job that they could do. And I think if you're getting up every day and moving around and going out shopping, you can work from home and you can work from a laptop. And
also, you know, everyone knows I'm very open about my mental health problems, and when I have them, I'm actually better working or doing something.
Exactly.
Being sat at home worrying about how you feel can actually make you feel worse.
But it's better for your well-being, isn't it?
Yeah, completely.
But it is very easy for Jeremy Hunt to actually say that he would do that, because I think he's right. It's one of the most difficult jobs, because already, him having said that this morning on the news round, there are stories appearing online about, I'm terrified that this is going to be taken away and this. And it's the echo chamber is very big now, and it's difficult to make difficult decisions.
But I mean, the only things that are good, I mean, I think the minimum wage stuff is important.
Yes.
I think that does give people encouragement to work. It's worth something. There's potential to make more money eventually.
But in terms of protecting the working person, I mean, yes, minimum wage has gone up for those who are earning the smallest amounts. But in terms of protecting working people, has that happened? Because yes, national insurance contributions gone up for employers. That just means it's going to be slower for employees to feel the impact when they go for their pay rises or when they're looking to expand their teams.
Or they
won't be able to do it.
Well, exactly, and small businesses just won't be able to take on the staff. And what will happen is that people will be given jobs that would have been done by 2 people and are now done by 1. And so that is going to be very stressful for people.
I wonder if people get, you know, how much of their minimum wage increases are going to be sucked up by the bus fare.
Exactly, and when you combine that with the new business plans that are forcing certain rules on businesses from day one, I think that there are groups that have fought so hard for their rights, like women, who are going to suffer at that. I think young women may struggle to get jobs because people will look at a young woman in a small business and think, she could be very expensive for me.
Yeah.
Which is what happens all the time anyway. We know there's so much discrimination against women because of the so-called risk of them getting pregnant and then being on maternity for a long time. And that's just going to get worse.
And we wonder why the birth rate's falling.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that.
I've got a bit of a sniffle this morning, Renee. What do I need to be eating, according to the eye, to fend it off?
Do you know, I love this article because...
I love all these foods, Renee.
Yes, because basically what it's saying is that food is really the underpin for good health, and we know it is. And people now think... I think lots of people will hear blah, 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 but actually, rather than putting a multivitamin in where you're getting everything in one thing that may not be absorbed by your body properly, just eat yourself to health, or at least help ward it off. So things like blueberries, salmon, kale, nuts. Nuts are a brilliant snack. They're good, healthy fat. Don't let people tell you they're going to make you fat. I eat my body weight in nuts every day. And I think it's really, really important. If we can all go back to a natural, unprepared, unprocessed food style.
My only issue is that I'm actually allergic to nuts. I mean, terribly allergic. Have an EpiPen, can be killed by a walnut. If you never need to get rid of me, it's the easiest way to do it.
We know how. It's whole foods, isn't it? It is your food.
Cottage cheese is on there. I do quite like... I go through phases of liking cottage cheese.
Me too. I love
it's a good quick protein, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
You like the other cheeses that maybe aren't so good for
Brie.
I was having quite a lot of red Leicester last night, which was delicious.
I had red Leicester last night.
We're in sync, darling. We're in sync.
What should we have a look at now? Nikki, what's the time? Yes, let's have a look at Halloween costumes, shall we? And apparently your choice says a lot about you.
Well, mainly about your ego. Because, you know, it's fashionable now to just dress in the sexiest outfit you can and then put a bit of fake blood on your face.
Is that
I don't know if you've noticed.
Yes. I heard someone last week, actually, just say, are you having a Halloween party? And she said, oh, last year I went as what's that? Not Ann Summers, but one of these...
like a lingerie tricks.
Well, no, but like one of these lingerie chairs. I went one of their angels.
Yes, you use that as an excuse.
Yeah, it's just an excuse. People just pick the sexiest frock they can and then do
I
the
saw
weird
the
makeup.
best Charles. I've just been to Spain last week because it's half term, and we took Alice to a Halloween thing. And this little toddler who was only about 2 came in, and his mum had just used bandages to wrap him up like a mummy.
Yes.
He looked fantastic.
Very cost effective.
And I love that.
She was probably a nurse.
It doesn't need to be expensive. I love that.
Yeah, my
It's a really
sausage
good
dog
one.
has got a spider costume, so if you imagine a little dachshund with like
lots of legs,
it is pretty amusing.
That's quite good. My great niece was put in a pumpkin last night.
Aww.
With her legs sticking out the bottom.
Did you like it?
And the pictures of her are just good.
It's brilliant,
howling,
isn't it?
Howling. She did not like it one little bit, but there's good pictures.
Well, we will go trick-or-treating later today, and Alice will go as Hermione. Always, everything is Hermione. She gets invited to Princess. Yeah, she gets invited to Princess party. She goes as Hermione. She goes. Well,
love it.
Yeah,
so cute.
Oh, and what time do you go trick and treating?
Well, I'm actually working. I'm in GP land, so it's once I get home about 6 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. Lovely. Oh, well, there you go. If I'd have known that, I'd have asked you to bring your pad in today. It was like when they knock you out a quick script in the breaks.
Rennie always gets harassed, don't you?
I've had a busy day in the green room.
A list of things. I'll show you my rash in a bit. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, you two. Let's have a look at the weather.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Happy Halloween. Here's your GB News breakfast weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. For some, there is some eerie fog around first thing this morning, but much of this will clear away, and then it is generally going to be a dry but rather cloudy day for most of us. The exception being across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the north-northwest. Here it is going to be a little bit wet, some rain pushing through, the most persistent rain for the Northern Isles. There will also be some strong gusty winds here, could be some gales in exposed spots, but elsewhere across much of the UK, like I said, staying largely dry, not a great amount of sunshine to be had, pretty cloudy but pretty mild as well, with temperatures peaking around 15 or 16 Celsius. Now, if you are heading out trick-or-treating this evening, for many it is going to stay largely dry, but still the wet weather continuing across particularly northern and western parts of Scotland. The rain not especially heavy, but it could be quite persistent at times. A drier story further east and south across Scotland and across Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales. Apart from the odd spot of drizzle, it is going to be mostly fine this evening. Some breaks in the cloud, but generally a pretty cloudy night, and so that does mean temperatures not dropping a huge amount, and so it should be pretty mild, good for not needing a coat over the top of your costume. Overnight we are going to see rain in the north, edging a little bit further southwards across the northern half of Scotland, staying drier elsewhere and sticking with those largely cloudy skies, so that's why it's going to be a fairly mild night for many of us, although there again could be some mist and fog patches developing, particularly in the south. Any mist and fog will clear as we go through the morning, and then otherwise through tomorrow, a similar day to today for many of us, albeit a wetter story across much of Scotland as a front edges its way further southwards, breaking up as it goes though, with some colder air piling into the far north, so a chilly story in the far north of Scotland, again pretty mild elsewhere, albeit not as mild as today. Have a great Halloween. Bye-bye.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding in Conway on the A55 North Wales Expressway. The inside lane's closed eastbound where a vehicle caught fire between junctions 24A and 25 at Boddle Withen, causing queues, not helped by a breakdown in the queue. On the M6 in the West Midlands, there's a lane closed southbound where a car's broken down between junctions 10 and 9 from Walsall and Wolverhampton turn towards Birmingham, causing delays. In Norfolk, the A11 is closed northbound from Wyndham to Headerset after a tanker overturn, causing queues towards Norwich. In Suffolk, the A143 is blocked by an accident at Great Barton, causing queues. In Essex, the Dock Approach Road is closed southbound off the A13 at the Baker Street interchange at Tilbury after an accident with long delays towards there. And in Cornwall, the A390 is closed where a vehicle's overturned at Mid Tap House between Liscard and Lost Withiel, causing delays. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,000 and £25 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For your chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A bombshell budget as Britain faces 40 billion in tax hikes.
The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, signals the return of tax and spend Labour.
This budget raises taxes by £40 billion. Any Chancellor standing here today would have to face this reality.
So what does it mean for you? Well, injecting huge funds into the NHS and schools, with businesses bearing the brunt of the pain.
The largest real terms growth in day-to-day NHS spending outside of COVID since 2010.
But for drivers and drinkers, some good news as the Chancellor freezes the fuel duty and takes a penny off your pint.
So I have decided today to freeze fuel duty next year, and I will maintain the existing 5% cut for another year too. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol. There will be no higher taxes at the petrol pumps next year.
But we spoke to the Shadow Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, who had this to say.
Many people this morning are waking up feeling utterly betrayed that we've had the biggest tax-raising budget in history.
We also spoke to Conservative leadership contender Kemi Badenoch.
This is not Tony Blair's Labour. This is Jeremy Corbyn's Labour with Keir Starmer fronting it. And that is going to be very clear to a lot of people who thought that they were going to get a benign Labour Party, but it's coming after their pensions, it's coming after their income, it's coming after their businesses.
In other news this morning, a British man amongst 95 killed as flash floods cause horror and devastation in Spain. We'll be live in Valencia shortly.
And we're heading to Europe's biggest Halloween festival in Londonderry, where 100,000 visitors are set to take part in the fun.
Are you heading out trick-or-treating this evening and wondering whether you need a coat or umbrella? Well, for most of us, the answer is no, but I'll have the details coming up.
It's just gone. We're not going out, thanks for asking. It's just got 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
All right, let's crack on with dissecting the budget, should we? Because it's a tax bombshell for Britain. The Chancellor has unveiled that £40 billion in tax rises in Labour's first budget in nearly 15 years.
Well, it's returned to big spending, high taxing and more borrowing, putting the economy on a low-growth trajectory. That's according to the OBR.
Well, our political correspondent Adam Cherry joins us now. And it's the OBR prediction off the back of this which is most worrying, Adam.
Yeah, that's right. The Office for Budget Responsibility, which marks the homework of the government whenever they release a budget or autumn statement, they say that growth is going to be pretty anemic over the next 5 years, about 1.5, 1.6% over the next 5 years, and that also mortgage rates are going to go up, and as a result of hiking national insurance on employers, that wages will fall, or rather won't grow as quickly as expected, and the labour market will be constrained. So all of that is obviously tricky for the Chancellor to answer, particularly given how much she venerated the OBR over the last couple of years, saying that she wanted to empower it, would work closely with it, and now actually it's criticising her own figures yesterday. So it's a tricky one to answer. It would have been good to ask her these questions on air, but unfortunately she wasn't able to do so in the last hour. So let's hopefully at some point she'll make time in her diary to chat to us about it.
Of what this means for businesses, especially small to medium-sized businesses.
Yeah, small to medium-sized businesses, of course, will be affected by this with the national insurance hike. The smallest businesses, with I think under 4 employees, are protected, although, of course, if you want to expand beyond that, if you want to grow, suddenly it's much more expensive, because of those national insurance hikes on employers, to hire any more people or to give them pay rise to anyone you already have. So, look, she has already said that these measures will affect wages. She's acknowledging that, and she's saying she doesn't want to repeat this again. It's quite odd language to be saying coming just a day after you deliver your first budget and the first Labour budget in 15 years. So there's clearly some acknowledgement of this, because there has to be, based on what the OBR are saying and based on how much trust she's put in them.
It's this very strange situation where, I mean, they have stuck to their word in terms of not taxing working people directly, but in fact every single person is going to be indirectly affected by this. There's no getting around it, even if it's just the amount we pay to get on a bus.
I think she's stuck to her word if you're applying this with a fine legal comb and you're saying, if you're looking at every dot and comma of the manifesto, and yet they haven't raised national insurance on employees. There's questions over whether they were direct about that in the election, and they haven't raised income tax or VAT. But as you say, working people pay the price for all of this inevitably anyway. When you're raising £25 billion on the cost of employing of labour, naturally that's going to filter down to those who are working for you, who worked for their living. So, look, there's no getting around the fact that spending 40 billion or raising 40 billion through tax hikes in a manifesto that just 4 months ago made no mention of it is a huge risk. She has to hope that the public go with her on this, swallow this and just say, oh, OK, we've got to get through it, and in 5 years' time we'll be, hopefully, we'll have more money in our pocket, or at least public services are significantly better, particularly in the NHS, which is getting a lot of cash. That waiting list needs to come down, and she needs to have something to show for what she's done here.
Okay. Adam Cherry there for us at Downing Street. Thank you very much.
Right, let's get a bit more reaction, and we're joined by restaurant owner Dan Bryan and the owner of the Dog and Parrot, Catherine Boehm. Good to see you both this morning. Oh, it sounds busy in one of your places this morning. Catherine, can we start with you? I mean, what impact do you think this is going to make? Because, I mean, you can give take a penny off the pint for your customers, but anyone you employ is going to cost you more money.
Yes, yeah. I don't think we're going to get the penny off the pint. So, because obviously the breweries, their wages have gone up as well. So it works out at 70 pence per cask that you have that you can get off beer duty. So that, if you look how much the wage rise has gone, it's not going to be sunk into anything. So we're not going to gain anything from the 1p off at all.
And what about minimum wage going up? How's that going to impact you and the people that you employ?
Yeah, well, I sat and worked it out yesterday. I had with my notepad and my calculator. It's going to roughly cost me £2,000 a year. And I've got a very small business. Obviously, everything else is going up as well. So just at this moment in time, just wages, working on what I've run into at the moment, it's going to cost me at least £2,000 a year.
I mean, you're going to be in a similar boat, Dan, haven't you? Because obviously you've got the number of people you must employ in a restaurant, but also whether people have got the disposable income or feel as if they've got the disposable income to come in and spend it with you.
Yes, well, it's a double whammy because, like your reporter was saying, it's a trickle-down effect. Like, if you start punishing businesses, you indirectly punish the workers, and that's exactly the message that she's sending out with this budget, is that if you want to open a business, you're punished. If you want to employ staff to help you achieve your goals, you're punished. If you want to come to Britain and be a success, you will now be punished.
And what about the 1 pence of a pint for you, Dan? Is that something that you think is going to be passed on? Is that something you think you're going to get?
Well, like your other guest was saying, we won't see that because the cost of making that pint will have gone through the roof. And there comes a tipping point with businesses. Once it gets untenable and the owners are making less than the staff, then they simply stop hiring and they simply stop making that beer.
I mean, obviously, businesses like, I mean, both of yours, but Dan, yours in particular, it's so important to the growth of our economy in the UK, which we're told is a goal of this government, and understandably we want to grow the economy. Is there anything in this budget which you can look at and say, yeah, maybe within 2 or 3 years things can get better, I can expand, I can hire more staff?
No, because this is part of a bigger agenda, and it's on the WEF website, it's on the UN website. They want small businesses to be less and less. They want rid of farms. It's all there for the public to see, and this is that big major push towards the new digital economy. And it's just, if you wanted to release a manifesto that was anti-business, then this is it. This is the manual of how you destroy businesses. And this country's economy is 90% run on small to medium enterprises, SMEs they're called. And if you start attacking them and destroying them, then you're not going to have an economy in 5 years. It's ridiculous.
And Catherine, that's a point, isn't it? Because both of your businesses, Dan and his restaurant, you and your pub, you are both reliant on disposable income, people coming through your doors with that disposable income. And you've got the OBR, Office of Budget Responsibility, cutting its growth forecasts, paving the way for higher interest rates and for higher mortgage costs as well, which does mean that fewer people will be able to head out to restaurants and pubs like yours.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with what Dan said. It's going to affect so many small businesses. I mean, we're a little community pub. We have a lot of pensioners coming here as well. You know, the wage rise has gone up, the pension's gone up, but what doesn't realise, I've been speaking to a few pensioners, and that will now take them over that threshold that they won't be able to get the winter fuel next year. So it's going to have a knock-on effect because they're not going to have the money. They're coming here just to have a bit of community, have a chat, you know, keep a little bit warm, but they're not going to be able to do that because they won't have that disposable income anyway.
It's a really difficult one, isn't it? Dan Bryan and Catherine Boehm, good to see you both this morning. I've got to say, Catherine, I like the look of your pub.
It looks cosy, doesn't it?
It looks, that's exactly the sort.
You're very welcome. Yeah, you and Ellie are welcome anytime.
Thanks, Catherine.
That's exactly the sort of place we love to go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That looks great, doesn't it? It's that roaring fire.
Fire going. Absolutely gorgeous.
Beautiful, isn't it? But it is so tough, isn't it, for those small and medium-sized businesses, and to hear that directly, it's... I mean, also the fact that one pence off the pint, it's not even going to be passed on to restaurants and pubs.
Well, no, because if it is, I mean, they make a valid point. You don't think about it, do you?
No.
But if it's going to cost more to make the beer, then obviously you're not going to notice the difference. It's just the beer will go up 1 penny less than it would have done.
Exactly.
Which doesn't have the same impact, does it?
It doesn't.
Just have an impact, but not the same. So the concern with all this is, I think we'd swallow it more if we were going to say it's tough now, but in a couple of years, the OBR is saying we'll be at 2% growth or whatever, or 5% growth. But as it is, they're saying, well, we're in essence flatlining. They say 2% for the first 18 months, 2 years, then it's going to drop down to 1.5%. And it's not where we need to be.
It's anemic, isn't it? Thin gruel in terms of what Rachel Reeves wants as a pro-growth chancellor, as she describes herself.
Anyway, more analysis throughout the day on that one, as you can imagine.
The death toll in Spain continues to climb, with a 71-year-old British man among the nearly 100 fatalities resulting from devastating flash floods.
Well, rescuers are continuing to search for those people who are still missing. This is thought to be the worst natural disaster to hit Spain in nearly half a century.
Well, our reporter Sophie Reaper is in Valencia and has been talking to locals on the ground.
Here in Paiporta, what is happening is that we don't have help. They are not coming to rescue the people that are dead. There are still some of them in their garages. People that cannot leave their houses yet. People are raiding the supermarkets. We cannot stay like this. It's unsustainable. We cannot deal with any more of this. We need the army, big machines to try to move all of the cars because all of the streets are covered with them. Some of them are as high as the first floors of buildings. We really need a lot of machines to try to move everything. I don't have words. Bad. Very bad. It's very sad.
It's funny looking at it in the daylight as we were earlier on. Because the water seems to have gone from Valencia, at least. But when you look at the cars, there's just like rows of cars. They've all just been knocked on their sides.
Yeah. Or carried downstream to...
Just horrific.
A long way away from where they were parked up. I mean, absolutely devastating. I was looking at the pictures this morning of entire roads that had been ripped up, just exposing the pipes underneath. I mean, you can only imagine the power of that water.
Absolutely.
And the level of that flooding, just dreadful.
Right, more on that as well throughout the course of the day, and Sophie's going to be there for the next day or so, getting the full coverage on that. But we're going to be talking about, it's a bit of a gear change, but it is Halloween tonight, so we're going to be looking at that in just a moment.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christys. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Apparently, in the Mail, page 5, hard-pressed bosses already having to deal with deadlines, red tape and staff who won't actually come into the office over Christmas. And they're saying that Christmas parties this year are going to be as lame as ever because everyone's afraid of basically getting cancelled or misbehaving or getting sacked for their behaviour. Would you risk it, Trey, at Christmas?
Do you know, I've actually never had a normal job in my life, so I wouldn't last a second because I'm not very politically correct. But it must be horrendous, really, because rather than enjoying yourself, you're having to completely always censor yourself. And it might be the most innocent of stuff that's said to someone that they then take offence to, which means you're going to probably just keep your mouth shut, which doesn't sound like the best of parties, does it, really?
No. Tricky one, isn't it? Because you're not at work, so it's not an office issue if, you know, some banter and it's taken the wrong way. But still, it's still a work environment, isn't it?
Yeah. If HR shows up, it's a work party. It's a work event.
HR shows up, I'm gone.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. And so even for us this year, first of all, it's the first year we're calling it a holiday party. I don't know how I felt about that.
Really? What, your company's doing that?
Yeah, they're calling it a holiday party.
Oh, no, well, no.
Yeah, I know. I voted against.
So they got rid of the word
Christmas.
Why?
Because we want to be inclusive.
How's it not inclusive to call it Christmas?
I know. Trust me.
Are you still going to go? I wouldn't bother going. I'd say no.
I am going to go, but I'm going to go dressed as Mrs. Claus, and it's going to be Christmassy, and I'm going to make sure that Christmas enters the door with me.
Yeah, you spread that Christian vibe.
100%. But outside of that, there is that element of HR showing up, and HR will be sober, and they've already prepped them to say, like, listen, this isn't your party. HR can have their party. This is your hangout.
Yeah.
Make sure everyone's being PC.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, how do you fancy winning Christmas this year? We could all do with the money.
Yeah, we certainly could. Well, we're giving you the chance to do just that with the latest Great British giveaway. Here are all the details that you need.
We could be delivering the perfect Christmas to you this year. First, we'll give you £20,025 in tax-free cash. Then we'll give you £5,000 to spend on all of your Christmas presents. Christmas lunch, that's on us too. With a further £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. Finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. And the best news, you'll get it all in time for the big day. For your chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, best of luck with that one. Now, here's a question for you this morning. This Halloween, do you believe in ghosts?
No. Do you?
I don't know, actually.
Oh, you're open to the idea?
I'm open to the idea.
Well, according to research on YouGov, around 36% of us do.
Well, let's get some real answers with ghost hunter Robert King, who joins us now. Morning. Look, the big question, Robert, is going to be, as a ghost hunter, have you found any?
I think I have, Stephen. Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Ellie. How are you? Happy Halloween.
Thank you.
Happy Halloween.
Yes, I think I have found one. I certainly came face to face with one some years ago, in the year 2000, to a guide. I thought it was a guide in Albert Dock in Liverpool, although I do concentrate on the dramatic heart of Wales here in Neath Talbot. But this guy appeared in front of me, and he was dressed in a red cloak with boots, not unlike a huntsman out hunting, but nevertheless, his slate grey eyes pierced me, and I can see them to this day. Was he seeing something strange too, looking at me? I don't know, but he turned quickly and disappeared. I hurried to where he had turned, and there was no one there. Some years ago then, it intrigued me as I'm writing up ghost stories and goodness knows what. And I wrote to the Albert Dock and asked them, have you got guides showing visitors around the museum? And they said, no, but we know what you mean.
Oh. Robert, I wanted to ask you about the front page of the Daily Star today. It says ghosts are dying out. It says fewer and fewer people are spotting ghosts. Is that because there are fewer ghosts around, or do you think, a bit like me, maybe you're not open to it? People can't see ghosts because they're not looking for them.
I don't think so, Ellie, because the way I see it is they're around us all the time. There's no question about that. Watching over us in one way or another. The thing to do is not be frightened of them and talk to them if you see something strange. Whether people believe in it or not, I don't know. Do they believe in UFOs? Did they believe in fairies? These things have always intrigued me. Nevertheless, I think there is as many around today as there always has been, and people will continue to see them walking through a busy town.
What do you think they are, Robert? What do you think they are? Do you think they're spectres? Do you think they're echoes?
Echoes, spectres, glances at electricity in the walls. Goodness knows, Stephen. But one thing I am convinced of, they are there. And this applies to animals as well. In our house where I live in a village in the Vale of Neath, we have 3 or 4 cats in there that we long gone, but they're still there waiting. They're still there waiting, maybe for us to join them. The ghosts are all around us. All I say to people is, don't fear them. And in Neath, we have the Duke of Wellington Public House, which is owned by a guy called Tony Grunt, and he's a lovely man. And he has on tape a vision of a spectre walking through his public house. He's got a name. He's called Captain Tom. This vision on the camera was checked by Kodak many years ago, and they could find nothing wrong with it. It disappeared on Hilroy Silk's program many years ago, and they were astounded.
Well, I have to say, I find it absolutely fascinating. Really good to talk to you this morning, Robert. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you both.
Thank you. So maybe that's it. Maybe we have to be open to it and talk to ghosts.
Well,
See what they have to say for themselves.
Let's try that now. Andrew Pearce, good morning.
You were asking, do you believe in fairies? Of course you believe in fairies, Stephen.
Yeah, thank you.
See, I'd be more likely to believe in fairies than I would be ghosts, actually.
No, I think there's something there.
Tooth fairy.
Anyway, morning, you two.
Good morning.
Miriam, what have you got for us today?
Well, a big reaction to the budget, of
Yes.
course. I mean, of course, not that we're going to get a chance to discuss it with the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves. Discourteous and rude is it's understatement of the year. Why does she not feel she should come on to GB News and talk to our viewers and listeners?
But we'll be looking at all the different people it affects, especially farmers. That's obviously big news. Wow. Is this the end of the family farm in Britain?
I fear that's going to become I think it will become a major issue.
I think Clarkson's going to become a thorn in the government's side.
Well, he could be on that one, but also it's food security on that one. It's an issue, isn't it?
Yeah. It is, and whether or not these farms will just be sold for development or taken over by massive multinational companies, which is not what we want for our countryside. You know, farmers are a tie between the past and the future, aren't they? And nobody wants them broken up.
Here's a thought for you, because we don't know the answer. Why has she not gone after your big tech?
They never do.
Amazon,
they never do. The times that the previous government said they would do it and David Cameron said they would do it, I just think these big tech companies have very clever lawyers that that outwit the Treasury lawyers. I think that must be the answer, because
and
they don't pay their fair share of taxes.
And they threaten things like pulling out of the UK, which they would never do.
No.
But obviously they're incredibly powerful and have very big lobbying organisations. So, yeah, very depressing. We'll try and make it fun.
You've got 20 seconds. Tell us about pumpkins.
We've got to going to show viewers a pumpkin, which is rather large, and we're going to ask them to try and guess the weight of it.
Oh, that's fun.
It is colossal.
All right.
And Andrew wants you to guess the weight in pounds.
Yeah, I do.
Not kilos.
I don't want to do kilos, because I'm old-fashioned.
Yeah, Andrew, yeah. That you are.
I think most viewers and listeners do.
Thank you too. And we'll see you tomorrow from 6 a.m.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Happy Halloween. Here's your GB News breakfast weather forecast coming to you from the Met Office. For some, there is some eerie fog around first thing this morning, but much of this will clear away, and then it is generally going to be a dry but rather cloudy day for most of us. The exception being across parts of Scotland, particularly towards the north-northwest. Here it is going to be a little bit wet, some rain pushing through, the most persistent rain for the Northern Isles. There will also be some strong gusty winds here, could be some gales in exposed spots, but elsewhere across much of the UK, like I said, staying largely dry, not a great amount of sunshine to be had, pretty cloudy but pretty mild as well, with temperatures peaking around 15 or 16 Celsius. Now, if you are heading out trick-or-treating this evening, for many it is going to stay largely dry, but still the wet weather continuing across particularly northern and western parts of Scotland. The rain not especially heavy, but it could be quite persistent at times. A drier story further east and south across Scotland and across Northern Ireland and much of England and Wales. Apart from the odd spot of drizzle, it is going to be mostly fine this evening. Some breaks in the cloud, but generally a pretty cloudy night, and so that does mean temperatures not dropping a huge amount, and so it should be pretty mild, good for not needing a coat over the top of your costume. Overnight we are going to see rain in the north, edging a little bit further southwards across the northern half of Scotland, staying drier elsewhere and sticking with those largely cloudy skies, so that's why it's going to be a fairly mild night for many of us, although there again could be some mist and fog patches developing, particularly in the south. Any mist and fog will clear as we go through the morning, and then otherwise through tomorrow, a similar day to today.